Hello, horror fans, and welcome to the season 4 premiere. It's a premiere, Lee, of the Script
Hell
to
yeah.
Screen podcast, where we delve into the spine-tingling world of horror cinema. Each week, we look at the scariest scenes, unmask the deeper meanings behind your favorite horror films, and explore the psychology of fear that keeps us coming back for more.
From script analysis to scene breakdowns, we'll be dissecting your favorite horror movies to see just what makes them tick. So whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado or just starting to explore the genre, join us as we unravel the spine-tingling stories that haunt the silver screen.
I'm Will.
And I'm Lee.
Now, for those of you who may be new to the show, please check out our website. That's scripttoscreenpodcast.com, where you can find a lot more insight into the scripts and the films that we cover. We've added scareology graphs to illustrate the scares in each of the films and annotated script excerpts to highlight some of the ideas and concepts that we cover when discussing the screenplays. So if you want to go deeper on your favorite scripts, there's more to interest and entertain over at scripttoscreen.com. Also, if you like what we're doing here on Script to Screen, please like and share the episodes if you can. It only takes a moment, but it really helps us reach new people. And if you're enjoying the show and really feel generous, leaving a review is amazing for us. So that would be awesome too. So, Lee, season 4 premiere. Feeling good about this?
Absolutely, man. I've been craving to get back into some script dissection. So yeah, I'm very much psyched for this.
Yeah, nice. Me too. We've been having some really good bonus episodes, I thought, over the last few weeks. We did the interview with Phil Parker, which is really good for any writers out there.
Great, yeah.
Real good dissection of the horror genre. We obviously talked to Janine at Grey Horror about some hidden horror gems, didn't we?
We did. That was great. Jean's amazing. Check her out if you haven't already.
Absolutely. Did our live podcast, didn't we? At
Yes,
the,
that was an
Screens by the
experience.
Sea
That
Festival
was
in
great fun.
Bournemouth.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. And another one that escapes me now, to be honest.
The animals. It was our A to Z of animal attack movies.
Oh,
How
of
could you
course
forget
it
that?
was. Animal Attack. How can I forget? Anyway, go and have a listen to those. That was loads of fun. But we're back into the normal swing of things now, aren't we, Lee?
Yep.
Dissecting a film, dissecting a screenplay, back into the normal season. And this is season 4 now. So, how have you been, dude? And what have you been watching?
Yeah, like I said, I've been okay. Watch wise, Netflix had a new shark movie out called Thrash.
Ooh.
So, unsurprising to any and all, I'm sure I was straight on that shit.
Did it satisfy your sharky needs, Lee?
Man, I mean, it was okay. Paper thin characters, super low stakes, but it was fun. It was good fun. It was basically Crawl, but with sharks instead of alligators, but it wasn't anywhere near as good as Crawl.
No, doesn't sound that good, to be honest.
But, there's something of an unspoken rule among connoisseurs of shark exploitation, and that is you can forgive a lot if the shark looks good. And these sharks look pretty damn decent. The whole film looked really good, to be fair. I kind of shudder to think how much money they threw at this thing. But how about you, man? What you been watching?
So this week I watched a bit of fluff this week, Lee. I watched the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which I thought was fun. It had a good tone, and I think the new characters are sort of fun. And we got to see some of the old characters come back as well, which was great. I also saw a film called Fountain of Youth with John Krasinski, Natalie Portman. That was fun as well. It's a really well kind of structured film. If you want to sort of see how a sort of streaming kind of blockbuster should be structured, I think they do a great job on that. And I also caught a film I've been meaning to watch for ages, and it's a film by John Alvidson, starring Peter Boyle. It's a film called Joe. Have you ever seen Joe, Lee?
I have not. I couldn't even tell you what it was about.
Oh, it's pretty wild. I think you probably quite like it. But yeah, this is a film. Basically, Peter Boyle is sort of a character who, well, I need to go back a little bit, but there's a young lady who you meet at the start of the film, played by Susan Sarandon in her first role, and she's sort of a, child from a rich kind of well-to-do family that's gone off the rails a bit and hooked up with this kind of sleazy junkie character. And her parents try and get her out of this situation. Anyway, the dad ends up meeting this character called Joe, played by Peter Ball in a bar, and it's after that it gets pretty wild, but it's
Yeah.
definitely worth a watch. I think you probably quite enjoy it. It's kind of darkly comic, and then takes a bit of a dark turn at the end. But it was written by Norman Wexler. I don't know if you know Norman Wexler, but he did some great movies. He did obviously this, but he wrote the screenplay to Serpico,
Hmm.
Saturday Night Fever, I think. Raw
Oh, nice.
Deal was another one of his,
Oh,
Arnie's
wow.
movie,
Yeah,
Raw
I know that
Deal.
one.
So
Yeah.
yeah, he's great. So it was really good, really worth a watch.
Awesome, bud. Sounds good. So, what is strapped on the table for dissection this week?
Okay, Lee. Well, this week we are going to be looking at the infamous adaptation of Stephen King's The Mist.
Oh man, this one is an absolute banger. You're gonna love this one, I hope.
Yeah, nice. So, released November 21st, 2007, and filmed on a budget of around $18 million. The Mist would go on to bring in just shy of 57.5 million, and was directed by one of our script to screen favorites, Lee, directed by Frank Darabont, of all people.
Nice. We'll be comparing the film to a copy of the script dated August 5th, 2005, and weighing in at a respectable 111 pages and written, of course, by Frank Darabont himself. A couple of things about this script. I actually had two different versions on hand. This one and a revised draft dated December 2006, which was around 30 pages longer. The sole reason I went with the earlier draft was that sadly the more recent longer draft was incomplete. It was missing some pages. And also I had completely forgotten that Frank Darabont wrote this script. And when I first opened it up to read, I just saw the name on the title page and just got this huge grin on my face, like, yeah, this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, he does write some damn good screenplays, doesn't he?
Oh mate, I think he's up there with the best, definitely. I mean, hell, he may well be my number one. But random thought. That's an episode we should do down the line. I think when we've a bunch more episodes under our belt. The best horror screenwriters.
Oh, yeah, we should definitely have a look at that. Who would you put in there at the moment, Lee?
Or Darabont, obviously. But from a horror perspective, I think there's 1L, Duffield, Cargill, Carpenter, and Craven, to name a few. I think Devon will be up there too when we have some more work from him to study. How about you? Any suggestions?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd probably maybe Jordan Peele up there at the
Hmm.
moment. Ari Aster maybe, Kevin
Yeah.
Williamson too, possibly.
Ah, yeah. Good picks. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to have a little think about that though. It's a good question. We should definitely do that episode, Lee. That'll be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Okay, well, without further delay, let's kick off season 4 of the Script to Screen podcast with a deep dive into The Mist. A violent storm unleashes a mysterious mist concealing deadly alien creatures. Trapped in a supermarket, a group of survivors fracture under fear and fanaticism. As paranoia grows, one man struggles to protect his son amid escalating human and inhuman threats.
Nice. So, straight off the bat, we've got some interesting deviations on the page. After the title page, we have two individual quotes on page two, which kind of help to set the scene for what is to come later.
And what rough beast, its hour come at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. W.B. Yeats. Get it off, get it off! Christ, get this friggin' thing off me! Norm, the bag boy. So this is interesting. Like you said, Lee, definitely helps to set the scene, I think. The first quote is the last lines from a poem by W.B. Yeats called The Second Coming, and it tells of an apocalyptic second coming of Christ. Only what rises to fill the void in this dark and hopeless world of fanatics is instead a vile, sphinx-like beast which heralds a new age of darkness and strife. Definitely thematically relevant, I think, here, Lee. The
Yeah,
second quote is actually from a character in the film, isn't it?
it is. Yeah, it's lifted directly from page 36 of the script.
Yeah, it makes for a nice juxtaposition. This almost gothic, kind of famous poem, and then there's the desperate screams of Norm, the bag boy.
Well, moving on from that, we also have a completely different opening in the script from the film. Now, check it out.
Fade in, blackness, and silence. A title card comes up. The Storm. A crash of lightning rips from the sky, revealing exterior, military base, night. A metal sign on a chain-link fence being whipped by a nasty storm. Arrowhead Project. Military personnel only. We close in as lightning booms and crashes, moving past the sign to reveal a low, nondescript building. Interior, Arrowhead Project Lab, night. In which high-tech equipment encircles a huge, pressurized chamber. The chamber is low-tech, massively thick glass windows, ribbed and riveted steel, like an old-fashioned diving helmet reinterpreted as a large room. It's dark inside, fathomless. Lab-coated personnel are everywhere, seated at workstations, computer screens streaming data. A pair of tense scientists, Mackham and Naylor, hover at the shoulder of a seated tech named Phillips. Naylor, we should pull the plug for tonight. The storm. Mackham, it's got nothing to do with it. Our power sources are shielded, stable. Off Naylor's look. Relax. Activity mounts. We hear a rising turbine whine. Banks of video and wave spectrum cameras are trained at the darkness within the chamber. Everybody is intensely focused, eyeing their data streams, murmuring to one another. The whole vibe, very mission control. Phillips glances up. Phillips, sir, alignments are set. Mackham, engage. Switches are thrown, commands keyed in. Scientists and soldiers peer into the chamber, eyes straining into the darkness, and inside the chamber, a faint pinpoint of light appears inside the chamber, blooming into existence from nothing, growing ever brighter, like a spotlight being shined through a keyhole. The room, a hush falls. Faces are slack, stunned. A uniformed colonel moves to Mackham's side, gazing in wonder as, inside the chamber, the keyhole widens, irising open to become a portal of dancing, swirling light. It shimmers, growing larger and brighter, halating the glass. People are struck with wonder, light rippling their faces, reluctantly tearing their eyes away to check their boards as Mackham, check your data streams. Give me constant updates. Flag any anomalies. Suddenly, exterior, military base, lab, night. Lightning slams from the sky, blasting along the fence, the power lines, anything metal or electrical. A soldier is blown out of the guard booth as the surge explodes every circuit and panel, sending up showers of sparks as it courses along. And we pan the surge as it goes blazing into the turbines powering the lab, sending them into smoking overdrive. Interior, Arrowhead Lab, night, and creating instant panic as Phillips, we got a hell of a surge. Needles are way in the red. Mackham, disengage, shut it down. A mad flurry as they try to shut the system down, but the whine continues to build, the portal of light within the chamber growing larger and brighter still. Colonel, come on, kill the goddamn power. Phillips, I can't. Mackham, what do you mean? What do you mean you can't? Trip the breakers. Mackham darts over, frantically punching buttons. Phillips's screen is flashing data almost too fast to make sense of, while the light inside the chamber swirls ever faster. Naylor, the system's overloading. Phillips, where's the power coming from? Mackham gazes up, realizing. The lightning. We're pulling it right out of the sky. Exterior, military base, lab, night. He's right. Overlapping bolts of lightning are blazing down, coursing through the array of power turbines. Interior, Arrowhead Lab, night. While the light within the chamber builds into a whirlwind of unearthly power, people shield their eyes from the glare, helpless to do anything but watch. A few techs break and run. Mackham, remain at your stations. Colonel, how thick is that goddamn glass? Mackham, thick enough. Pressurized to 40 atmospheres. But even Mackham sounds uncertain. Colonel moves closer, peering deeper into the light. It's blinding us, but Colonel, hushed. Am I seeing something in there? Angle shifts to Video Tech 1, scared shitless, trying to darken and adjust the image enough to see. Video Tech 1. There's something. Mackham. What? Video Tech 1. Something. Moving? We see it. Something in the light. Something slithery. And that's when the first crack appears in the glass. The sound of the snap makes everybody freeze, staring in horror, desperately hoping it holds, but... Crack. Snap. Another crack. The glass begins to spiderweb. People turn and run, but it's too late because... Mackham, softly. Jesus. Wham! The first window explodes out, lacerating a tech with flying glass, blowing him back in his seat as a huge eruption of otherworldly mist blows through and engulfs him. And the windows explode in sequence as the mist freight trains into the room, blowing techs back in their chairs, engulfing people on the run, muffling their screams, wiping everything completely and utterly into blackness, silence. So this is quite a hefty scene, isn't it, Lee? And answers
Yeah.
without any sort of lingering doubt where the mist came from and what it may be. And you know what I'm going to say? Why do you think they made this change?
A few reasons, I think. I mean, you know me, I'm a big believer in the less we know, the scarier things are. And explaining the big bad away in the first scene of the film would, I think, most definitely remove a lot of its power in later scenes. We still find out pretty much what the mist is and where it comes from, but it's kind of drip fed to us throughout the film rather than just handed out on a platter right at the start of the meal, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's much better this the way it appears in the film, and certainly it gives the audience a chance to kind of imagine what the mist may be
Mm.
as it sort of first emerges. You get the chills because the mist is sort of unexplained, but you also get to go on the ride of kind of discovery, with the characters, which I think is really great.
Yeah, absolutely. Great for immersion.
Yeah, yeah. Well, on screen, the film kicks off by introducing us to the protagonist, artist David Drayton, played by Thomas Jane, who is busy at work in his studio, Lee, on what looks like a poster for King's The Dark Tower. And did you spot what was lurking in the background here, Lee?
Oh, hell yeah, I did. Art from the Thing movie poster. I also spotted Pan's Labyrinth and what looks to be some kind of homage to it in there as well.
Yeah, nice. Well, all of this artwork was by the king of movie posters, Drew Struzan, whose work I guarantee all of our viewers will have seen somewhere. I mean, this guy has done everything from Star Wars to Harry Potter and everything in between. Absolute legend.
Absolutely, man. One of a kind talent right there. And I highly recommend you all to take a deep dive into Struzan and his work if you get the chance. It's well worth it, I promise you. Now, I do have my own little arty recommendation that I'm going to throw up a little bit later in the breakdown. But first, and I apologize if I've brought this up already in our Thing episode, but I always used to think that the Thing poster, you know, that classic image of the light shining from the Parker wearing silhouette,
Yeah, yeah.
I always thought that it was a deep sea diver with a headlight, you know, one of those big, like, sort of like dome headlight kind of things, the old school brass ones. And I could never figure out what it had to do with the film until someone pointed out my obvious oversight, and I felt like a right pillock.
This is your favorite film of all time, Riley.
Yeah, I do feel great shame.
Well, poor David's work is interrupted as the raging storm causes a power outage. And fearing the worst, he takes his wife Steph and his young son Billy down into the basement to weather the storm. Now, it's a good job he gave up on the painting as soon after the storm smashes a tree through the window, taking out the painting and a big chunk of the room with it.
Yeah, so this is all pretty much in line with what's written in the script. On screen, we spend a little more time with David and his paintings, but I suspect that was just Darabont's way of paying homage to Struzan, which is pretty awesome, to be fair.
So back on screen, and we get to see the full aftermath of the storm. Poor David's painting has been ruined, his front window obliterated, and as soon as we learn from an overexcited Billy, their boathouse has been crushed by a neighbour's tree.
Yeah, that boathouse has been well and truly annihilated.
Smushed beyond repair, Lee, I think. Now, at this point, our hapless onlookers spot the incoming mist on the lake. It's a tad odd, but nothing to be too alarmed about at this point, at least not yet, Lee.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick question. What is the point of a boathouse exactly?
Well, I'm no expert, but I would imagine it's to store one's boats.
Stolen for what though? I mean, why not just kind of tie them to a jetty or to the shore? I don't get it.
Yeah, again, I mean, I'm not an expert here, but I suppose you want to keep them out of the elements, maybe?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure boats would be waterproof, dude.
Yeah, I'd wager not if they're full of the stuff, though.
Ah, yeah, good point. Good point. A tiny detail I picked out here, the dialogue is all pretty much on point with the script so far, with the notable exception that in the script, David refers to the incoming mist as fog and a fog bank, whereas on screen he's straight in there calling it a mist.
Yeah. Well, it's not called the fog, is it?
No, sir. That would be a completely different kettle of fish, be it the 1975 book by James Herbert or the John Carpenter classic film and its shockingly awful remake. So it's easy to see why that line in particular was changed.
Yeah, good chat. So David heads over to see his neighbor, Brent Norton, played by the late great Andre Brower. And there's very clearly no love lost between them, as their strained dialogue informs us.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really great subtext on the go here, and the two men play it so well. I mean, we know from David and Steph's dialogue earlier that these guys have clashed before, and the moment Brent sees David, he's instantly on the defensive until David spots his wrecked car. Let me give you some of the breakdowns here. So this is from the script. David, oh man, Brent, I'm sorry, sincerely. So here, he actually means it. He is sincere, but Norton, as you're going to see in a second, doesn't believe him. So Norton replies with, Norton, oh, that's nice of you to say, as in, yeah, you're full of shit. I know you hate me. And then David replies with, no, I mean it. That car was cherry. I hate seeing it like that. And it's kind of here that Norton realizes David is sincere and he drops his defenses a little bit because they're kind of playing this little verbal game. You know, David's coming in, he's being nice. Norton doesn't believe a word he's saying, and then David just doubles down on the niceness, you know?
Yeah. It's well acted,
Um,
isn't it?
yeah, it's really well done. It's really well done. And one last thing about this little interaction is you notice how the writer doesn't signpost the dialogue. Like for a lot of screenwriters, especially those just starting out, the temptation will be there to use parenthesis to clarify the underlying emotions. So
Yeah.
instead, someone might write something like this, like David, brackets sincere. Oh man, Brent, I'm sorry, sincerely. And then Norton, brackets skeptical. That's nice of you to say. And but Darabont doesn't do any of that. He just leaves it to the actors, assuming they're going to nail it straight down. But I know Darabont has the vaunted writer
Writer,
director
director
privilege.
privilege.
Yeah. But actors know their shit, you know. They'll be looking at the different ways and techniques they can use to bring your words to life.
Now, despite our often mocking Tonely and referring to it as a privilege, I mean, being a writer director is, the ultimate kind of end game for a great many people out there, and some of us as well, and a testament to the hard work and drive that an individual brings to the table, I think. Anywho, long story short, the two men find neutral ground as they both lament the destruction of Norton's car, and it is a beauty, under
Mm.
yet another tree. And after some hesitation, Norton asks David for a lift into town.
Yeah, it's 3 for 3 for the trees so far in this film, you know. Where's
Doing
Mark
well.
Wahlberg when you need him? Because these damn plants are out for blood, man. We also get another scene that is in the film, and this one gives us some backstory for Norton.
Interior, Drayton kitchen, day. Steph's at the sink with the water running, separating broken and unbroken dishes. She glances out of the window, surprised to see Norton trailing David into the yard. Exterior, house, day. Steph exits onto the porch. Steph. Brent. Norton. Hi, Steph. Awkward beat. Some morning, huh? Steph. You could say that. David. Brent needs a new chainsaw. He's going to ride into town with us. Steph. Something wrong with your car? Norton. A tree came down on it. Steph. Beat. I was sorry to hear about Carla, Brent. We all were. Norton. Thank you. It was sudden. 2 months from when she was diagnosed. Steph. I'm sure that wasn't easy. Norton. No, it wasn't. Billy comes charging out of the house in fresh jeans and sneakers, past Steph down the stairs. Billy. Ready, Daddy? David. Great, champ. Mr. Norton's coming too. Billy. Suddenly shy. Hi, Mr. Norton. Mr. Norton. Hiya, Billy. Steph. Coming down the steps. Here's the grocery list. Pick up some ice too if they've got it, so we can keep the milk cold. Norton off screen. That is the weirdest thing. They turn. Norton shading his eyes, gazing across the lake. The mist has swallowed half of it, still coming this way. Norton. That mist. I saw it coming down the mountain this morning. Now it's halfway across the lake. Some kind of inversion layer, I guess. David stares at it, getting a bad feeling. Something about that mist spooks him, but he has no idea why. David. Hun, why don't you come with us? Steph. I'm up to my ears in glass and mud, that's why. It'll take me all day. You guys go, I'll be fine. So why lose this, do you think, Lee?
Well, it's pretty redundant, I think, and we know from past examples of his work that Darabont is ruthless when it comes to cutting scenes. If it's not 100% essential, it is gone. And this, as well as having some pretty on the nose dialogue in places, I think is far from essential.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that, Lee. Yeah, yeah. So, with Norton on board for the ride, David and Billy head to the local mini mart. Now, en route, the two men discuss the storm and the passing vehicles from the local power company. And a stream of army vehicles pull the conversation toward the military base up in the mountains, the mysterious Project Arrowhead. Ooh,
Ooh.
Lee. The two men jokingly discuss the plausibility of the various conspiracy theories they've heard about the place.
In the script, this dialogue runs a little longer, and the two men briefly discuss crazy Mrs. Carmody, who will feature hugely in the story a little later. But here's a little bit from that excerpt of script. David, you know Mrs. Carmody owns that weird antique shop in town, Norton. The creepy place with all the dead stuffed animals in the window? David, that's the one. Bumped into her at the gas station one day and she starts in on Arrowhead. She informs us that they're fooling around with atomic things. That's what she said. Those army boys are shooting atoms into the air, make no mistake.
Now, our unassuming heroes make it to the supermarket without incident, but cell phone coverage is out. So David decides to check in on his wife via a nearby payphone while Norton and Billy head into the store. Now, the payphones are down too, Lee, which is sinister. So David
Mm.
heads into the store itself, which is heaving, and the power's out. And the backup generator is focused on keeping the freezers running. So it's balls to the wall. And it's here we are introduced to a slew of characters. First off, it's young cashier Sally, who informs us about the power and that half of the staff didn't show up for work today, the bastards.
Yeah, mate, these little red flags are quickly starting to build up, I think.
Indeed, indeed. So David then moves on to chat with Ollie, who the script informs us is the assistant manager and is played by the always wonderful Toby Jones. Then along comes Mrs. Carmody, played to absolute perfection by Marcia Gay Harden. And David warns Ollie to keep his head down.
Yeah. At this point in the script, we fade to black and get a title card, The Coming of the Mist.
Yeah, now you know what's coming now, Lee. Why did they lose this?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's necessary. It breaks up the flow. It takes us momentarily out of the film, and for what? I get why it's there, but for me, it feels like forcibly inserting a moment of gravitas. It doesn't even occur at a noteworthy point of the script. To me, it just feels a bit out of place.
Yeah, again, I think I agree. I mean, I wonder whether this was a nod to the film being based on a book, because in the script, this happens several times, doesn't it? It gives the script a kind of episodic feel or a sense of like narrative chapters.
Hmm.
Either way, I think it's better off jettisoned. Although Darabont does use fades to black in the film, which does give the film a feeling of kind of being broken up into chapters. Still, they're just, I guess, kind of less conspicuous.
Yeah.
Anyway, back on screen, David rejoins Norton and Billy, and it seems the two men may be ready to bury the hatchet.
Nice. We also get a look at someone reading the Castle Rock Times newspaper. And for those in the know, Castle Rock is a fictional town created by Stephen King and features in many of his works. So this is quite a cool little Kingian Easter egg, if you will.
Yeah, love it. So a trio of young army guys rock up to the store, one of whom, Private Jessup, played by Sam Witwer, has eyes for young Sally Lee.
Hey.
Aww. The various customers idle in the abnormally long queues as they wait for their turn.
There's a great little writer's note in the script here. I'll read it for you. Various angles of store activity. People shopping, maneuvering in the aisles, trying not to bump carts, cashiers working. It's all very normal, and yet its very normalcy should unnerve us. Brackets. This is very much in the tone of how it's shot.
Yeah, really interesting that I think, isn't it? We can come on to sort of stuff like that in the breakdown a little bit.
Yeah.
But everything is slowly chugging along in the store. Billy chats with one of his school teachers, the elderly Irene Repler, while David notices Amanda Dunphy, played by Laurie Holden, in an adjacent line. A military policeman pulls up outside and quickly tracks down the army guys in the store, and we overhear snippets of their conversation. All leave is cancelled, Lee, and they're ordered back to base. At the same time, police and fire crews raced past the store. Their sirens are blazing, and the shoppers are starting to get a little uneasy, and rightfully so, when boom, air raid sirens hit. Oh, that can't be good. Oh dear. The occupants of the store drift towards the windows, and as the siren continues to wail, bloodied man Dan Miller sprints toward the store. He's almost hysterical, screaming that something in the mist took John Lee.
Not John Lee, no.
Yeah, John
Uh,
Lee.
John Lee. Dan is played by Darabont mainstay Jeffrey DeMunn. Interestingly, in the script, it's not the mist that took John Lee, but the fog. There's something in the fog.
God damn it, Jeffrey. We've already had this conversation. So, our Herald of Doom kicks off our first major scare sequence at around the 12-minute mark. And despite Dan's warnings that there's something dangerous in the mist, a few plucky shoppers decide to make a break for their vehicles. And we get a great shot of the titular mist just enveloping everything. And at least one of the fleeing shoppers vanishes from sight and leaves us with a parting scream. It's so ominous. Then the siren cuts out and everything is deathly silent. The store is completely enveloped in the mistly.
Yeah, man, it's eerie as fuck. It's like the outside world has just vanished completely.
Well, at least things have quietened down for. No, there's a fucking earthquake now, Lee. Unbelievable. The store is rocked by heaving tremors. Shelves tumble and parts of the ceiling and lighting crash down. After nearly a minute, the quake subsides and the occupants of the store catch their breath. One of the shoppers is freaking out, though. It turns out she left her 8-year-old alone at home with the baby and needs to get back ASAP. She begs for someone to accompany her, but when nobody steps up, she curses them all and heads out alone.
Yeah, this lady is played by Melissa McBride, who many will no doubt recognize from her career-defining turn as Carol in The Walking Dead. And, I get she's in a tough spot, but leaving an 8-year-old alone with a baby, come on, love. You reap what you sow here, I think. But it is a great little moral test for the patrons, though, as not the army guys, the manager, or even Norton are willing to accompany her. And even David turns her down, though. In his case, he does have his own kid to worry about, so we can kind of let him off that one.
Yeah, it's a good little moral test early, isn't it?
Mm.
It's a minor one, but it's there just to test them a little bit early doors. So David takes Billy to the back of the storefront where he does his best to console the sobbing child.
Now, here in the script, we get our second fade to black title card. What happened to the bad boy? Obviously, this, like the previous one, is missing from the film itself.
Yeah, so any fresh thoughts on this, Lee?
Nothing really new. I mean, we do get a brief time cut in the film here, so it would have slotted in a lot better than the last one. But we do get something with spoiler, but that could be offset with the teaser it also entails. Um, so it's working better than the last one, but this is an all or nothing kind of thing, and I think the film is definitely better without them. But part of me wonders, like you said earlier, if the original novella had these little chapter breaks. So I think I'm gonna have to check that out.
Your dedication to the pod is always inspiring. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have the EPUB of The Mist, and I've just had a quick skim through it, and lo and behold, the novella is broken up into very similar, if not identically titled chapters. So I guess we know where these originate from for sure now.
Ah, good. There we go. So it's been a short minute in the film. David and Billy are resting at the back of one of the aisles with Irene, Amanda, Sally, and Irene's friend Hattie. Ollie comes over to check on them. Now, David wants to get some blankets for Billy, so he heads out back of the store where he finds the generator is smoking like Helen Mirren in an episode of Prime Suspect. Lee. He manages to shut it off, but is plunged into darkness and stumbles haphazardly around the back room. Amanda, meanwhile, is gathering medical supplies while in the background, Norton and a group of shoppers are discussing their options, while crazy Mrs. Commody pipes up that this is the end of days and she's dismissed by her fellows for now, Lee.
Nice. Couple of really tiny changes here from the script. On paper, it's Ollie who goes to fetch the aspirin and Sally who comforts Billy, whereas on screen it is Hattie who does so.
Now, back in the loading area, David hears something pressing on the bay door, gently at first and then violently, the metal bowing against the pressure. Now, panicked, he dashes back to the store where he runs headfirst into Ollie, Norm, and some other locals, Jim and Myron, who accompany him back into the loading area to investigate. After firing up the generator again, only to have it smoke out once more, they conclude that the exhaust vent outside must be blocked. Norm and Myron offer to go outside and clear it, each keen to be the hero in this particular situation, and it falls to David as the voice of reason to try and talk them out of it.
Yeah, in the script, David is still warning people this is no ordinary fog.
No, it's no fog at all. It's a mist. So things quickly turn hostile, though, when Jim, in no uncertain terms, reminds David that just because you're a big shot city boy, don't mean you know better than me.
Fucking brilliant.
He decides to turn the generator on for long enough that Norm can squeeze through the doors and clear the blockage.
Yeah. I mean, Ollie pretty much sums this situation up perfectly for David. This is from the script. Ollie, they've lost their sense of proportion. Out there in the market, they were scared and confused. In here, there's a problem they can solve, so God damn it, they're going to solve it. Good old Ollie is doing my work for me here. He's hit the nail right on the head.
Hmm. Maybe time for a new co-host, Lee.
Oh, fuck off.
As if anyone could ever replace you. Embrace yourself because our next big scare sequence is about to kick off at the 25-minute mark. So the gung ho locals raise the loading door a couple of feet and Norm prepares for his heroic moment. I've got to say, before she even kicks off, the way that the mist just lingers on the precipice, not entering the store despite having a clear patch to do so, is pretty creepy, I think. Things quickly go south, though, Lee, as giant tentacles squirm through the gap and latch on to poor Norm. And these are not your garden variety tentacles. They're fanged, many-mouthed death noodles. And they tear chunks from poor Norm as they try to drag him outside.
Oh, mate. So remember when I mentioned a little earlier about an arty Easter egg of sorts? Well, the creature designs in this film were created by the absolute god tier legend that was Bernie Wrightson, one of my favorite artists of all time. So I don't know if you're familiar with Wrightson's work, but seriously, you need to check him out. I mean, this guy was on a whole other level. The detail and originality of his work was genuinely breathtaking. And I highly encourage anybody that isn't familiar with Bernie Wrightson to jump online and dive down that rabbit hole. His creature designs for the mist are easy to find online, so Google that shit ASAP and thank me later. It's amazing stuff.
Absolutely, dude. I love Wrightson's work. What a list of credits that guy has, right?
Mm.
Anyway, back to the film, though. And David is the only one to rush to poor Norm's aid, though to his credit, he is joined by Ollie a moment later.
In the script, Ollie is crippled by an asthma attack, which kind of limits his usefulness, but I guess it's still better than nothing. I also just want to once again highlight how good Darabont's writing is. I mean, here is just a snippet from the tentacle attack scene as it is written in the script. A second tentacle comes slithering, wrapping now around Norm's other leg. The barbed pad sinks in, pulls off a hunk of fabric and flesh. The tentacle rears up and poises in the air with its prize, then starts feeding. The mouth in the pad gobbles, the bloody hunk bobbing like a dog scarfing a treat. Below it, the rows of tiny sucker mouths lining the tentacle hungrily snap open and shut, grabbing any morsels that fall.
Yeah, so this is a long action line for you, bud. I know you like your action lines about 2 to 3 lines a piece. This bad boy's 7 lines long.
Yeah, I know, man. I mean, you make a really good point. I do like to keep my action lines short and concise, and that's for a couple of reasons. It's how I was taught, and it's my preferred writing style. But Darabont just writes so well. I mean, yeah, you could cut this down by half easily, but there's magic in the way he writes. You know, it's so visual. You can literally see the images he's constructing on the page. Now, I do realize I'm being somewhat hypocritical here. If this were pretty much any other writer, I'd be chewing them out for overwriting. So I have to reluctantly stick to my guns and say yes, from a purely technical standpoint, I think it's too long. But Darabont has been nominated for 2 Academy Awards for screenwriting, so what the fuck do I know? You know? Long story short, if you write as well as Frank Darabont, you'll just fucking run with it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so all their efforts are in vain, though, as more and more tentacles enter the loading bay, and David and Ollie are forced to surrender poor Norm the bag boy to the mist. Ollie restarts the generator, and David shuts the door as the tentacles retract. One particularly large one has to be chopped down by David, but they are able to close the door. And after a brief moment of respite, David attacks an apologetic Jim and smacks the shit out of him before Ollie pulls him off.
Thomas Jane he's just so good in this scene, you know. He packs so much emotion into this outburst. It's like anger, frustration, grief. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There's a shame on display here as well. Oh, I know that sound. It's time for a random page check.
Okay. Okay. So by unspoken screenwriting law, 1 page amounts to 1 minute on screen. So let's take a second to compare where we are on paper and where we are on screen and see if that law is holding true here. So on the page, we've almost reached the end of page 40 in the script, whereas on screen, we are rocking up on the 30th minute.
Yeah, so that's a 10-page difference. I mean, that's quite a significant gap, isn't it? Any thoughts?
It is. Okay, well, bear in mind that straight off the bat, we've lost that kind of 5 minute, 4.5, 5 minute long cold open about the
Yeah,
Arrowhead project.
yeah.
And that immediately drops us down to about a 5 page difference. We've also lost that extra scene with the backstory about Norton's wife. So that's another page, plus various brief snips of dialogue. So I'd say, in truth, while there's a big difference in page and minute count, if we take all that into consideration, in actuality, I would say we're probably closer to about a 3 page difference, all in all.
Okay, well that's a lot closer to the mark, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but it's just kind of a guesstimation. But we're not too far off the bat, not shockingly off the bat. Also, I'm going to put the end of Act One here. The stakes are clarified. Our protagonist can no longer go back to his old life, and we are now on the uncertain road of change. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I think you're right. Yep. Yep.
Cool.
Okay, so back in the film, and David sends Jim and Myron back to the store with orders not to tell anyone what happened. He and Ollie then discuss their next call of action. Ollie thinks everybody should be warned of the perils lurking outside in order to prevent them from leaving the store, but David replies that they won't believe them. And to be fair, he has a good point, I think, Lee.
Hmm. And in the script, we get another spoiler title, A Discussion with Norton.
So I wonder what's going to happen next.
Yeah, indeed.
Back in the store, David changes clothes and cleans himself up so as not to frighten Billy. Amanda is quickly on the scene, but he avoids her questioning for the moment. The four survivors of the loading bay decide to try and convince Norton first, as he's a big shot attorney and people will listen to him. They need to be quick, though, as Ollie once again proves the voice of reason and logic when he points out that while the steel shutter out back kept the creatures at bay, the front of the store is paned glass. Now, to say the conversation with Norton goes badly would be an understatement. David's long term adversary almost immediately turns hostile, accusing David and the others of trying to humiliate him as revenge for filing a lawsuit against David last year. Paranoia.
Yeah. It just occurred to me that being a high-level attorney and losing a lawsuit you filed against your neighbor must be like a real kick in the dick, you know?
Yeah, I imagine that's more of a donkey punt to the dick for Norton, to be honest. David and Norton's heated conversation begins to draw the attention of nearby onlookers, and when things almost turn hostile, it's once again Ollie who neutralizes the situation by calling the rest of the store's inhabitants over and introducing David so he can tell them what happened.
And Ollie is already the MVP of this movie in my book.
He is doing rather well, isn't he? Yeah, well done. So David reiterates what happened out back. Norton, Bud, the store manager, and a big old leather-clad biker all laugh off his claims until he takes them out back and shows them the blood and the severed tentacle, which reacts to being prodded and then annoyingly dissolves into a grotty puddle.
Hmm. More annoying is that Norton himself didn't go out the back to have a look. So in the script, we get some extra dialogue where Bud calls out Norm, the bag boy, to stop clowning around and stop hiding and come out. And Mrs. Carmody starts rattling off her spiel about the end of days. And none of this made it to the final film, of course. Also, I want to take a moment to touch on another aspect of screenwriting that I'm sure those of you in the game will be acutely aware of, dialogue and character voices. So, what do I mean when I say that? Well, a common pitfall amongst new writers is that their dialogue always sounds the same, i.e., everybody talks with the same voice. And a classic test for this is to remove the names of the speakers and see if you can identify their character simply by the way you speak. So if you're still not quite following me, I'll give you all some examples. All this from this one scene. So we'll start with Jim. Jim, I'm sorry about Norm. Ain't making no excuses. Just saying. Now he's obviously not well educated. His dialect is less refined. His speech is clipped. He's just saying what he's thinking with pretty much no foresight or pre-thought. In other words, he's got no filter at all. Now, if we compare this to Norton. No, this pathetic attempt at a joke has gone far enough, turns to go, muttering. And don't I feel stupid? I thought you were being kind to me today. So Norton is obviously well educated, well spoken man of intelligence, and this comes through in his speech. He's a lawyer, so he is used to addressing people and making himself understood. His dialogue is refined, eloquent, and he's also uneasy around these people and is constantly on the defensive. And that's why he is so quick to see cruelty where there is none. So now we look at David, and again, this is all from the same scene. David, I know you're scared. I am too, but there are lives at stake, my boys most of all. I need you, goddammit, so get your head out your ass. I'll drag you back there if I have to. So we look at David, he's more abrupt and direct, but he's also empathetic. You know, his thoughts are first and foremost with his son. His dialect is more crass. He's not above some mild cussing, and he backs up his words with unspoken physicality. You know, he's smart, but in more of a kind of everyman kind of way. And then finally, good old Ollie, God bless him, again from the same scene. Ollie, Mr. David Drayton has something to tell you. You need to hear it in case you were planning on leaving. So Ollie is very humble. He doesn't want or crave attention. He's happy to delegate to others. But on the same note, he is very empathetic and is genuinely concerned for the safety of everyone in the store. It's him that calls everyone together when it looks like David is about to be ridiculed and dismissed. So you see, if you look closely at this dialogue, it is sometimes subtly and sometimes blatantly different depending on the character. And that is what we mean when we talk about things like unique character dialogue, identifying speakers, and so on. Because if you took all the speaker names off of this dialogue, you would still have a pretty good idea of who was talking because they speak in such different patterns. And that's the kind of bit I was trying to get across there.
Yeah, it's such a great point, Lee, and it's a really important kind of thing to do to try and differentiate your characters as well. And I think there's some some great tools on screenwriting software now which help you kind of craft this, isolating individual characters' dialogue so you can check you're hitting a consistent tone with them. But it's a great thing to be thinking about when you're doing your character dev, right?
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah. So I love it when Bud and the others return to the store and Bud drops this great line. So this is from the script. Bud. People, it appears we may have a problem of some magnitude here.
No shit, bud. No shit. In the script, we also get our next redundant title, the Flat Earth Society.
Yeah, now we get a great shot moving through the mist outside before it settles on the windows of the store and the inhabitants doing their best to reinforce the windows with bags of compost and dog food. The multitude of cracks from the quake are patched up with duct tape. It's not great, but it's better than nothing. We check in now on Mrs. Carmody, who has set up a little prayer station in the restroom and is imploring the big G to let her lead these people to salvation. She's interrupted by Amanda, who tries to offer some comfort to the crazed Carmody, offering her reassurance and friendship, only to be met with this cracking response. Mrs. Carmody: the day I need a friend like you, I'll just have myself a little squat and shit one out.
Hands down, best line of the entire film right there. And this whole scene isn't in the script either.
Norton is still convinced David and co are lying to him, despite the fact they are busy barricading the door for dear life, and calls for like minded folk to join him to discuss a rational means of escape or rescue Lee. There's no rest for the weary shoppers, though, as no sooner has Norton slunk off to plan with his cronies than Mrs. Carmody starts spouting fire and brimstone. It's the end of days and God wants blood. Her preaching gets louder and more vocal, scaring the children until Amanda steps up and slaps the Bible bashing biddy right across the chops.
Shit that out, Mrs. Carmody.
Hell yeah. So the old lady is relentless, though, spewing threats and warnings before retreating back. It's here that Billy notices the three army lads conspiring in the back of a shopping aisle and head over to investigate.
There's a cool moment between David and Billy here where the boy asks his father if mum is okay. And rather than bullshit the kid, David responds that he doesn't know, but he hopes so. He also promises to do everything he can to keep the boy safe and get him back home. And I love this like no bullshit approach. It'd probably be easier just to say to the kid, yeah, she's fine. You'll be fine. I promise. But he doesn't want to lie to his son or make a promise he can't keep. And that's going to prove to be important later on.
Yeah, it's a lovely little character beat, isn't it?
Hmm.
Now, the army lads quickly hush up and head off to help secure the store, but it's insinuated here that they know something they aren't sharing. Dan then poses the question if anybody has a gun. One fella has a shotgun in his truck, but he's understandably reluctant to go fetch it. Then Amanda pipes up. She's got a revolver and 12 rounds of ammunition.
And rest assured, I'll be keeping track of those bullets, folks. So let's see if the continuity guys did their thing.
Good stuff. So nobody is very comfortable with a gun, though, until you guessed it, fucking legend Ollie steps up again. Turns out, Lee, he was a state target shooting champion back in '94. There's no rest for the wicked, though, as Norton and his crew have decided they've had enough and are leaving to get help, and there's no talking them out of it this time. Instead, David asks Norton to tie a rope round his waist so they can see how far he gets, and his neighbour is about as receptive as you'd expect here. So the biker steps up instead, offering to take the rope and try for the shotgun in the old man's pickup. So they rope him up, and the group head out into the mist at around the 51-minute point. Now they quickly vanish out of sight, Lee, but all seems to be going well until the rope suddenly drops and goes slack. Ooh, it's a moment of tension. Then the rope moves again, quickly, too quickly, Lee. It's yanked hard, burning David's hands as it turns into a tug of war between whatever is pulling and the guys in the store struggling not to let go. The rope goes slack again, and David starts hauling it in quick. Even when the rope becomes slick with blood, he doesn't stop, not until the biker's lower torso is dragged into view. Now, the onlookers are understandably distressed by this, and the door is quickly secured.
Yeah. Respect to the poor guy for giving it a shot. I mean, it's at this point in the script we enter the next titled chapter, When Darkness Came.
Ooh, it's ominous, isn't it, Lee? Now, David checks in with Jim and Myron, who have managed to rig up some spotlights to some old car batteries, but there's only enough juice to run the lights for a few minutes.
Yeah, this scene doesn't appear in the script. Instead, at this point, we get a really cool moment with everybody's favorite assistant manager.
Interior, market, day dusk. Battery-operated Coleman lanterns are being switched on and set out, people's faces harsh and colourless in the glare. Tracking shot brings us along the sentries stationed at the barricaded plate glass, 8 men peering out. Improvised weapons are close at hand, including several mops with their heads sitting in buckets of charcoal fluid. Outside, all is mist. Night is coming, deepening the shadows, wrapping the store in a shroud. The sodium vapor lamps in the parking lot look like eerie, distant planets in the gloom. Ollie's at the end of the sentry line, peering out, gnawing a chicken leg. Suddenly, a shadow seems to glide past out there. He pauses, blinks, rubs his eyes. He glances over, sees Dan staring at him, gives him a strained smile. Ollie, you stare at something long enough, your eyes play tricks on you. Dan, softly, I saw it too. So next up on screen, we get a really sweet little scene between Sally, the cashier, and Jessup, one of the three soldier boys. He approaches her when she's alone in the staff locker room, and the two confess they've always had feelings for one another. Things look like they may get hot and heavy, but this is hardly the time or the place. And instead, they just savor one another's company. It's really quite a sweet scene.
Oh, that is genuinely sweet. But if I know horror movies, and I do, one of them just signed their death warrant.
Oh, you're so nihilistic, you know that?
Ah, no, but dude, it's horror 101. You don't give a sweet, pure, young romance like that unless you're going to rip it apart in the very immediate future. Just mark my words, you'll see.
Well, I'm a stickler for Love Conquers All, Lee, and I, for one, am rooting for the young lovebirds. I think they should live happily ever after. I do, however, think they should carpe diem and bang. Just you never know, right? I mean, it is a horror movie.
Oh man, that
Anyway.
needs to be a t-shirt. Carpe diem and bang. On the theme of love in strange places, one of the bigger changes between the original novella and the film is that in the novella, Amanda and David form a very close bond, a very close bond. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, if you catch my drift. And we also get another moment in the script that never made it to the film, a brief scene where we check in with David's group and learn that poor Hattie is barely keeping it together, largely for Billy's sake.
Now, back at the window front barricade, massive wasp flies start to cluster on the glass. Now, this is not a good development.
Mm.
Each the size of a man's forearm and boasting a very nasty looking stinger. They aren't aggressive yet and don't seem capable or inclined to break through the glass, but this kicks off our next big scare at the 57-minute mark. The occupants of the store gather to study them and bring their various lights to better illuminate the site. The more light, the more bugs, until a swarm attracts larger predators to the scene. Huge bird like creatures, kind of like a pterodactyl sort of pelican. They swoop down in to snatch the bugs. And smashing into the windows and threatening to shatter them completely. Now, once again, it's Ollie who is first to realize they're attracted to the lightly.
Yeah. In the script, it is Amanda who first puts two and two together.
Yeah. Any reason for this little change, do you think?
I mean, it's a revelation that was just waiting to pop. You know, anyone could have come out with it, but I think by this point, Darabont would have realized the audience would be all in behind Ollie, so why not build his legend some more?
Yeah, he does seem to be the man with answers and a nose for trouble at the moment, doesn't he? So while our desperate crew are extinguishing the lights at the front of the store, dumbass Jim and Myron are turning on all the spotlights at the back. And sure enough, a couple of the bird creatures smash one of the windows, allowing some of the bugs to enter the store. Amanda takes down the first with a rake and stomps it to a pulp. And then, god damn it, Sally takes a stinger to the throat, Lee.
How's that power of love working for you?
Oh, you're enjoying this, aren't you?
Not at all.
Now, Jessup, of course he does. He rushes to poor Sally's side, and more bugs and a couple of the bird creatures force their way into the store. All the while, Amanda, who started off strong, now seems incapable of lighting a kerosene soaked mop.
Yeah, she's gone from comic Andrea to TV series Andrea in the space of a few seconds.
I understood that reference, Lee. Fantastic. So things are going from bad to worse in the store. Poor Sally's throat is swelling up like a balloon. One of the birds is ripping a guy's throat out, and some dumbass named Joe has managed to light himself a mop weapon, only to trip on the fuel bucket and set his dumbass on fire. David and Amanda manage to ignite one of the bird monsters, and David beats it to death with a mop handle. The burning dude is extinguished by some quick thinking shoppers who grab fire extinguishers. Meanwhile, another bug lands on Mrs. Carmody, who manages to remain calm and whispers, "My life for you." And whether she happened upon a particularly religious bug or it was her calm demeanor, the killer insect leaves her unscathed.
Yeah, you touch on a really good point here, which I will get into when this scene is over. But that quote, "My life for you," is lifted straight from King's The Stand.
Oh, nice. Nice. So Ollie, meanwhile, is chasing the other bird monster around the store, trying to get a clear shot. He drops it with one round, but the thing scrabbles away, making a beeline for Billy, who's decided now would be a good time to leave safety, stand in the middle of an aisle, and scream for his dad. Ollie has the shot, but can't take it because he'll hit Billy.
Would that be a bad thing at this point?
I'm in two minds, Lee. I'm in two minds. But David pulls Billy out of harm's way, and Ollie drops the bird with a kill shot.
Nice. So for those of you keeping count, we are down to 10 rounds now.
Mm.
Also, I think I would have given my left nut for Ollie just to drop some badass quip after taking out that bird. He's the world's most unassuming action hero.
Toby Jones dropping quippy one-liners would be amazing, wouldn't
Ah, I know, right? Can you imagine? Like, clean up on aisle 7.
it? Brilliant. So things are starting to calm down. The store is clear of invaders and the windows are being boarded up. Poor Sally is dead, her face and neck grotesquely swollen. Pyro Joe is alive but burnt to a crisp, and the guy whose neck was ripped out is also a goner. It also seems that some of the shoppers are coming round to crazy Mrs. Carmody's way of thinking, which is a sinister development.
Mhm.
Man, what a hectic scene. Things went from bad to so much worse, didn't they?
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you wanted to expand on something, Lee.
Something you touched on when you said about how that bug that landed on Carmody didn't attack her because she was still and reasonably calm. And that just kind of highlights a point I wanted to make and something that I really liked about this film. And that is that these animals are not inherently malicious. You know, they're quite literally just animals behaving in animalistic ways. These guys have literally been dragged out of their natural ecosystem and kind of dumped here. It's like if you took a bunch of polar bears and crocodiles and tigers and dumped them in the middle of London, yeah, people would die, but the animals are just doing animal things. They're obeying their natural instincts. The tentacle thing, for example, sent in some little feelers as probes, see if there's any food inside. And when it found some, it sent more. It was hungry and looking for food and retreated quickly when it was attacked. The wasp flies were attracted to the light and then panicked by the attacking bird monsters. Sally was screaming and flailing, so she got stung. Carmody was calm and still, so the creature probably didn't see her as a threat. The bird monsters, they were just picking off the swarm of bugs when a couple of them blundered into the store, where one found a distracted man, free meal, and the other just kind of blundered around trying to get out. And as for the what killed the biker, let's not forget John Lee as well. Whoever killed those two, who knows? But the key is humans are not designed to cope with these mist creatures. We haven't evolved in the same environment. We're easy pickings, we're slow, we're squishy, and to them, seemingly stupid. And that's why most of the people that go into the mist get picked off so quickly. We must be pretty easy targets compared to the things that have lived their entire lives in this bizarre food chain. I'll come back to this again later as we meet more mist creatures, but hopefully you kind of get the gist of what I'm prattling on about here.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, these are natural creatures behaving in a natural way and not the kind of malicious apocalyptic hell beasts old commodity would have us believe, right?
Exactly, exactly. That's exactly the point I was trying to nail. And in the script, we get an extra little scene amidst the chaos with a brand new bug. Check it out.
Men blast from the flames with extinguishers. David runs in, pulls Joe from the fire, Amanda smothering his flames while the hole in the window. Camera pushes in as a monstrous centipede pokes its head over the lip, squirms through, its million scrambling legs rattling over the bags and down the front of the barricade onto the floor. It comes fast towards us, the size of a huge boa constrictor, mandibles clacking, streaming up the aisle toward Billy, held by Hattie Turman. both frozen in utter shock and terror, mouths gaping in silent screams as the huge centipede thing bears down on them like a speeding train. Suddenly, Irene Repler lunges into frame, bellowing like a lunatic, a can of Raid, the big size, in each hand. She sprays the centipede thing right in the face. It recoils, chittering and convulsing as she coats it with insect killer. Irene strikes a wooden kitchen match, using it to turn a can of Raid into a flamethrower. Whoosh! The centipede bursts into flames, whipping and convulsing as it gets barbecued. Irene goes marching up the aisle toward the front of the store, grabbing a cheap tennis racket from a display as she goes. Now, after the chaos settles, we check back in with the biker's severed lower torso, which is still outside, before it is sniffed out and dragged off by some large unseen creature.
Right. I had a real Mandela moment here reading the script because I could have sworn that this centipede scene was in the film. Like 100%. I could visualize it in my head. I remembered it perfectly. And after watching the film, I had to go onto Google to be like, oh, where did that scene go? Why did they take it out? And then I found that it was never there in the first place, which
Mm,
is trippy as fuck for me, dude. I was like,
weird.
what?
I wonder what happened
Yeah,
there, Lee. Maybe you just dreamt
yeah, I
it.
know, man. I must have, or
Different
maybe I'm
film.
kind of, yeah, maybe I'm kind of bringing something in from a different movie. I'm sure there is another movie where some kind of killer centipede turns up, but yeah, I was very confused, which is happening quite a lot in my old age. But anyway,
It happens.
so on the page, we get our next chapter break here entitled The First Night.
Yeah. Now, David and Amanda discuss their predicament over a sleeping Billy before Ollie comes over to inform them that Joe ain't doing so good. So we check in on Joe, and indeed, he is not looking good at all, is he?
Ah, man, poor guy looks like Freddy Krueger with a sunbed addiction is not good.
The poor guy begs them to kill him if they can't do anything to help. He'll even do it himself if they give him the gun. Meanwhile, Amanda checks on Hattie only to find the poor old dear has OD'd on prescription pills. Things aren't looking good. Now, David, Dan, and Ollie, and a couple of others are discussing plans to raid the pharmacy next door for supplies to help Joe. And David is keen to get away from the store permanently, recognizing it as the potential death trap it is. So, I do have a quick question for you, Lee. If you were trapped in this store with the mist abound, would you want to leave or stay put?
It's a toughie. I mean, if it was just me and a few others, I would probably stay put. Like it was just me and some friends or me and family. Maybe fortify the back loading area or like, there's the back rooms. It's been shown that there's some fairly like sturdy places back there. But if there's that many people in there, I think I'd probably want to leave too.
Hmm. You, you really are an unsocial butterfly, aren't you, Lee?
It's not so much that. I mean, not just that, but the more people you've got in one place, the more chance somebody is going to fuck something up. Plus crazy religious lady is already annoying as hell, and she's going to get a whole lot worse. How about you? What would you do?
Yeah, I'd probably do the same as you, to be honest. If there was a few of us, I'd probably sort of stick around. If there's a load of folk, especially with a
Hmm.
few religious nuts thrown in, I'm leaving, dude. I'm gone. Yeah. Anyway, now Amanda informs them about Hattie, and they quickly move her to the makeshift morgue out back. And again, David stresses the need to get the hell out of Dodge and points out that Mrs. Carmody is going to become a serious problem, I think, before too long. He's probably right there. Amanda is skeptical that the old lady will be able to wield that much influence, but the others are of the same mind as David. There's a great line in here that made me think immediately of you, Lee, my pessimistic friend.
Was it looking at the script? Was it by any chance this one, Mike? You don't have much faith in humanity, do you, Dan? None whatsoever.
You read my mind, dude. Only on screen, it's Amanda posing the question instead of Mike.
We then get another Fade to Black chapter title in the script, this time The Expedition to the Pharmacy.
Hmm. Now, with the plan set out, David says an emotional goodbye to Billy and promises to be back soon. But just in case, he gives Amanda the keys to his truck and asks her to look after the boy should he fail to return.
Yeah, another cool little Stephen King Easter egg here, as David refers to his son as Big Bill, which is how one of the kids from It is often referred to.
Ah, okay. Now, as David and his crew assemble by the doors, good old Mrs. Carmody launches into a spiel about how they will bring the fiends of hell back with them should they leave the store. But thankfully, her rant is cut short as Irene punts a can of peas at her head.
Get it?
Yeah, cracking shot. They are then joined by Jessup and Jim before setting out into the mist.
A few minor changes from the script here. On the page it is Amanda who launches the peas at Mrs. Carmody, and Dan who takes the lead on the way to the pharmacy instead of David.
Yeah, cool. So, thoughts on these changes?
Well, I mean, David is the hero, obviously, so it makes sense for him to lead the way. And we just come off of a scene with Amanda preaching the goodness and decency of people. So I guess having a punt a tin of peas at an old lady, no matter how deserved it may be, would probably have undermined her point of view somewhat.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, dude. So our brave party quickly vanishes into the mist as they set out for the adjacent pharmacy. And at 1 hour, 17 minutes, rest assured, the shit is about to hit the fan again. There are some wonderfully eerie shots of the gang moving in and out of the mist before reaching their destination. And the first thing we notice as they head inside is that the doors to the pharmacy are wide open. Now it seems deserted, and David grabs a Hellboy comic for Billy.
Excellent choice, David. I see you are a man of culture and taste. Yeah. In the script, things are immediately tenser as they discover a headless body lying on the doorstep.
On the screen, however, all is quiet, isn't it? Deathly quiet.
Hmm. I find it interesting that the mist has completely permeated the pharmacy while avoiding the mini mart completely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they did leave the door open.
Yeah, granted that. I mean, but even when the shutters were rolled up in the loading bay, the mist just kind of lingered at the entrance rather than coming inside. You know,
Hmm.
I'm sure it's nothing more than a convenient plot device, but it's interesting to ponder, I think.
Yeah. Now, in the pharmacy, our explorers split into groups with David, Ollie, and Irene heading behind the counter to scavenge as many meds as they can, while Dan, Jim, and the others explore the rest. Now, we're with the second group now as they discover the place is covered in silk webs.
Yeah, see that would be my cue to nope the fuck out of Dodge, mate.
Courageous as ever.
Man, I've already seen the Mist's version of flies and birds, and I have absolutely zero desire to see what it makes of spiders.
I have to say, I probably agree with that, Lee. Well, I think our hapless heroes are about to discover the source of the wicked webs for themselves as they start to hear a sinister scurrying from further inside the pharmacy. Now, they move deeper inside, and it's Jim who first spots something untoward. People, Lee, cocooned in the webs and hanging from the walls and ceiling. He's freaking out and backs into another hanging corpse, only this one isn't quite dead yet. It's the military policeman from way back before the mist hit, and he is in a bad way, apologizing for something, maybe delirious, saying it's all their fault. Now, they try to pull him down, but he's glued on tight. And to make matters worse, he starts convulsing as baby spiders hatch from inside him and begin digging their way out. It is gruesome.
It
Now,
is gruesome.
because, now, because if this film had a motto, it'd be things could always get worse. At this point, the mama spiders show up and they are every bit as horrific as you'd expect. Ollie pops one with a well placed shot.
Nice. Down to 9 rounds now.
Good stuff. The commotion has woken the hive, and giant spiders appear from everywhere, Lee, squirting acidic webbing at our brave explorers. I've got to say as well, the way this is shot, Lee, it's strangely beautiful. You know, these web strands fire out at speed and then slowly kind of drift to the ground. It's a gorgeous
Mm.
contrast, I think. So David takes out one of the spiders with a fire axe, and Ollie shoots another, but there are too many, way too many, Lee.
Yeah, down to 8 rounds now.
Good stuff. Now, these spiders are pissed and extremely capable of defending their new turf. One of them webs a makeshift weapon right out of someone's hands, and another hits Joe's brother Bud with an acid strand on the leg, which melts straight through his pants and into his raw flesh. Ollie fires again, but we don't see if he hits anything at this point.
Yeah, he took two shots, so we're down to 6 rounds now, and we're
Mm,
halfway through. But unless he reloads, that gun should be empty right about now.
excellent. I'm glad you're keeping track of this, Lee. Now things somehow get even worse. The screaming MP thrashes free of his cocoon and topples forward, exploding into a swarm of hundreds, maybe thousands of tiny spiders. Another poor soul takes a spray of acid web to the face, which puts him down instantly, and Irene is confronted by an ambushing spider. But the battle hardened old biddy whips up a can of Raid and a lighter and toasts that motherfucker goodly. But the gang
Yeah,
drag
good.
poor Bud towards the door, but he's already bled out. And as they're about to leave, a massive spider bars their exit. And it's Ollie who steps up again and shoots, but click! You called it, Lee. The gun is empty. And it's Dan who takes the thing out with a makeshift spear. And the survivors flee into the mist and back towards the store.
Nice. Check out this little snippet from the script just to see how Darabont went about crafting this scene, which somehow manages to be even more horrific on the page.
Behind them, the MP shrieks like a soul in hell, jerking in his silk cocoon prison, his body now undulating with whatever's under his skin, swelling like a balloon about to burst. The MP's convulsing so hard he rips free from the silk, falling forward, and as he impacts the floor, he splits open like a ripe chrysalis, and a flood of spider babies comes pouring from his body across the floor, streaming and scuttling, hundreds of them, mewling like kittens, faces grinning and insane. David and the others make for the door as best they can, David and Ollie dragging Buddy between them, his lips already blue from blood loss, already going into shock. Crack! Crack. Streamers shooting out of the web maze. One wraps around Mike Hatland's arm, sinking into his flesh. He screams. Arnie grabs him, tries to pull him free, but a streamer comes whip-thwack around Mike's neck. His eyes go wide as his jugular erupts, and he goes down with a strangled sound, thrashing weakly as he gets pulled away into the webbing. The newborn spider babies come swarming, lapping up his blood like kittens, covering him in an undulating wave. Arnie screams, turns to run, but an adult spider thing pops from the silk and rears onto its back set of legs, nailing him right in the face with a silk goo shot from an orifice in its belly. Arnie falls in a thrashing heap, clawing at his face. The spider thing leaps nimbly down atop him, starts cocooning him in a web with dizzying speed. Yeah, man, that's definitely horrific, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not good. Now, thankfully, the gang make it back to the store without further incident, although the fact they came crashing in, Jim screaming like he's lost his mind, only further drives the survivors into Mrs. Commodi's clutches.
Yeah. So on the page now, it's time for our next chapter, Mrs. Carmody and the Soldiers.
Yeah, so David wakes up after a long and well-earned sleep. I think he passed out more than nodded off. But
Yeah.
he wakes to find Joe died from his burns, and Mrs. Carmody has most of the store in a fanatical death grip at this point,
Yeah.
chanting for expiation, including poor Jim, whose marbles are well and truly scattered to the wind at this point. So, do you know what expiation is, Lee?
Of course. But why don't you inform our listeners, though, who may not be familiar with the word?
Well, Lee, expiation is the act of making amends or reparations for some form of wrongdoing.
I absolutely knew that.
Yeah, of course. We both did. So, but the crowd's chants of expiation do not sit well with a few remaining sane folks, and they decide that the time is near for them to haul ass out of the store and take their chances in the mist. And I can't say I blame them. Before they venture out, they decide to interrogate the soldiers to find out what the MP was talking about when he was apologizing and saying this was all their fault.
Nice. Yeah, I put the start of Act 3 here as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I had it here too, dude. Yeah.
Nice. In the script, Myron attempts to talk some sense into his old buddy Jim, but gets the crap punched out of him as a result. And it seems that Jim is well and truly away with the fairies now.
Yeah, he gone. So
God.
they find Jessup alone at the front of the store. He denies all knowledge of the mist, but heads out back with the others to find his two missing buddies, an act that is noticed by the now fanatical Jim.
In the script, Jessup is far less keen to offer assistance, sparking this great line from David. David, quietly. I know you're a hometown boy, but that cuts you zero slack. Ollie there has a gun. If you don't come quietly, I'm going to ask him to shoot you in the leg. He'll do it too, and then we're going to drag you.
So the group head out back where they find the two soldiers dead and they've hung themselves, Lee. Now Jessup is distraught, saying he told them what the MP had said, but he didn't think they'd really do it. David is up in his face, demanding to know what the military did and asking about the mythic Project Arrowhead when Jim grabs poor Jessup and drags him back into the store for a reckoning at the 1 hour, 30-minute mark. Now, Jim whips the crazies up into a frenzy while poor Jessup pleads his case, and it's not until Mrs. Carmody threatens to cut his tongue out that he confesses what he knows. He's heard rumours, Lee, about the Arrowhead project, talk of parallel dimensions and opening windows to look inside them, only it seems that something must have broke through. David tries to intervene, but is punched down as the crowd turn on poor Jessup, beating him brutally before one of the crazies, a big butcher, stabs him with a kitchen knife over and over again. Brutal. Carmody calls for him to be fed to the beasts, and her fevered cronies hoist the screaming young man up and throw him out of the store before sealing the door behind him. And there's something big looming in the mist, Lee, and the poor kid barely has a chance to beg for mercy before being yeeted away to his doom. Carmody preaches to her flock that tonight the beasts will leave them alone.
What a bitch! It's such a brutal scene as well. I mean, Sam Witwer absolutely kills it here. And Darabont also does a great job of nailing it on the page. Let me read you a little excerpt from the script here. And the soldier is pleading for his life, even as he gets brutalized by little old ladies and the guy who works at the gas station, by people who have been friends and neighbors, by people now turned savage killers.
Yeah, just that bloody handprint left on the glass. Great imagery.
Fantastic. It's here in the script we get our final chapter heading, titled Escape.
Yeah. So during the night, Billy wakes his father and makes him promise that no matter what, he won't let the monsters get him. And David makes the promise.
That is a tough ask, Billy. I feel you may regret that.
Yeah. So come dawn, our heroes rise early and set their plan into action. Ollie has stashed some bags of groceries at checkout too. So the plan is to grab those and head out before anyone is the wiser. Unfortunately, they find the groceries gone and Mrs. Commody and her knife wielding flock waiting for them at the 1 hour, 37-minute mark. Now, David attempts to calmly and rationally talk his way out of the store, but the words calm and rational are missing from Mrs. Carmody's dictionary right now, and she forbids their passage. As the bloodthirsty minions surround our heroes, she calls for blood, for sacrifice, Lee. More specifically, the boy and the whore. Or Billy and Amanda, for the more rational minded. Things are looking grimly. Our sane survivors are hopelessly outnumbered, and all hope is seemingly lost when suddenly a gunshot rings out. Yeah! Our boy Ollie has only gone and popped a cap in crazy old Carmody.
Oh, mate, never has there been a more high five worthy moment in all of cinema. Now, I don't generally advocate the shooting of old ladies, but in this case, mm,
In this case, you're fine with it, right?
yeah,
He's, he's not done though, Lee. As Carmody drops to her knees, he puts a second round right through her forehead.
expiate that bitch.
Boom! So with Carmody dead and a gun-wielding Ollie swinging his titanic balls, the rest of the cult panic and make some room for our fleeing heroes. They make it to the door and they're out into the mist, Lee, at the 1 hour, 41-minute mark. And at first it looks like they might make it, Lee. Ollie reaches David's truck and opens up the doors for the others, but something big has spotted him through the mist, and a clawed giant snatches up the valiant assistant manager and bites him in half.
No, not
Oh,
Ollie.
I know, man. If anybody deserved to make it through, it's poor Ollie, right?
His legend will live on.
Yeah. Although I may have something to say about this later. But Myron is the next to go as a giant spider latches onto his face and takes him down screaming. Bud panics and flees back to the store, and the old fella Ambrose that was with him is taken down by a pack of roving spiders, complete with a little Wilhelm scream, Lee.
Ah, no, dude, you don't Wilhelm at a moment like this.
To be fair, they splice it in quite well.
Ah, I know, but it's like check out this awful moment of gravitas as we kill this fan favorite character. Oh, gotcha. Here's a little Easter egg for the lols. Just it's bad timing for me, man. Bad timing.
Anything for the lols. Okay, so we've got David, Dan, Billy, Irene, and Amanda in the truck, and no hope of anyone else reaching them. And just as they're about to hit the road, David spots Ollie's gun on the hood and he opens the door to grab it. It's just out of reach and there's a spider rushing him, but he makes it, barely. So now they have a gun with how many bullets, Lee?
4.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be plenty.
Mm.
Right. The spider smashes into the windshield and then scuttles over the pickup and leaves Lee. It kind of gave up a bit easily there, no?
I do have a theory on this, so remind me in the breakdown and I'll go into it a bit more.
Oh, nice. Okay, we'll do. So our final five finally make their escape. The onlookers in the store, Bud safely among them, watch forlornly as they depart. Also, how many damn lights does David have on that truck?
All of them, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the soundtrack is kicking off now, Lee. Big, epic, booming vocals as the pickup leaves the store behind. And I have to highlight this because this is the first piece of music I actually noticed in the film. Everything has been so quiet and naturalistic up to this point that when that track hits, it's almost like a slap in the face.
I know exactly what you mean, and the track in question is "The Host of Seraphim" by Dead Can Dance. And while it's a great piece of music, it's a real fucking downer in our current situation. I tell you.
So the gang returns to David's house, which is now Web City, and conveniently, Steph has been neatly cocooned outside the house, so there's no need to risk themselves searching for her. Thankfully, Billy is asleep and spared the sight of his dead mother.
Yeah, small mercies, I guess. Now, in the novella, David can't get back to his house because of collapsed trees and obstacles in the road, so is forced to make the hard choice to abandon his wife without knowing her fate. Now, I say hard choice, but don't forget, Book David has already shacked up with the beautiful, supportive, and nurturing Amanda. But I'm sure that had nothing at all to do with his decision to abandon his wife. I can almost picture it now. It's like David, Billy, I can't get to your mother. The trees are in the way. We have to let her go. Billy, but Dad, you can just go around. Look, there's a huge gap in that. David, she's gone, son. We have to move on now. Let's go.
Nice gravelly tones, Lee. Love it. So, with his wife beyond rescue, David sets out to drive as far as the fuel will allow in an attempt to try and escape the ever present mist. But it looks like it's not happening as the miles click past. They pass more signs of carnage and destruction, a school bus festooned with webs, destroyed vehicles, a colossal Lovecraftian creature that shakes the earth with each step. And with every mile that passes, you can just see the hope dying in their eyes. It is heartbreaking.
Yeah, in the script, we don't see this creature, merely just one of its giant footprints.
Mm. So finally, Lee, the truck runs out of gas and grinds to a slow halt. And as our tragic heroes lament their best efforts, a sinister sound emerges from the mist, and it's something is coming and something big. David double checks the gun, 4 bullets, Lee, at this point, and everyone in the car gives their unspoken consent for what needs to be done. Everybody steels themselves for the inevitable at the 1 hour, 51-minute mark. And at this point, Billy wakes up and his little eyes widen in horror as from outside we see 4 gunshots ring out. Then we're back inside the truck with David, bloodied and screaming. The sound from outside draws closer and he exits the truck, keen to face whatever grisly death awaits him.
Yeah. Now, for those of you who know, and for those of you that may not, here is the full scripted ending, which plays out almost exactly on page as it does on screen.
A heavy weight of silence. David works up his courage, picks up the gun, cracks the cylinder, shakes the bullets out. 2 rounds are expended. He discards the empty casings, leaving 4 live rounds. He stares down at them in his palm. Softly, David, there's 4 left. He looks up at the others. Everybody knows what this means. Dan, there's 5 of us. David, I'll figure something out. He loads the shells, softly closes the cylinder. He looks up at them again. The moment is charged, awful. Amanda nods, shaking, trying not to cry. Irene and Dan nod too. Angle from outside the Scout. The vehicle sits silent and disembodied in the world of the mist. We hear Billy stirring, his soft voice. Billy, off screen. Daddy? And then 4 even-spaced gunshots are heard, muffled at the distance, then silence. In the Scout, we find David sitting alone in the blood-spattered vehicle, the others slumped out of sight. He's holding himself coiled tight, then lets out a howl of soul-rending anguish and despair, dissolving into shuddering sobs of grief as he rocks back and forth like a man in an asylum. He puts the gun in his mouth, pulling the trigger again and again, praying for a bullet to magically appear, but no. He gets hold of himself, tosses the gun aside, takes a few deep breaths, steeling himself like a man getting ready to jump into a pool of ice water, fumbles for the door handle, gets out, outside the Scout, and slams the door. He stands there looking around at this primordial, dead white world seething. David, come on! He turns and lays his hand on the Scout's roof, waiting and waiting and waiting, and here it comes. Something big, a deep growling noise, coming closer, approaching in the mist. And now comes another sound as well, weird, wavering in the mist, unidentifiable, unearthly. Pushing tight on David as he gazes up, listening, waiting. And he looks around, increasingly stunned as the day seems to brighten. And now the sound is deafening, the deep growl descending upon us, becoming a huge roar. That roar, tank treads, and the other wavering sound, a voice on loudspeaker. And now the day goes brighter still, and the mist starts to part, dissipating as blazing lights burn through the haze, mounted on a tank, and figures in eerie hazmat combat suits come cradling weapons, entering the hot zone, sweeping the area, a voice booming like God from the mounted speakers. Voice, attention, all survivors, this area is under military control. All survivors report to our personnel for escort to the nearest aid station. And the mist clears completely, sun breaking through, world turning green again as soldiers come trudging, their ranks stretching into the distance, and several of them see David and come his way to help him, but David doesn't see them. David doesn't hear them. David never will. David is clutching the roof of the Scout, screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming. David will never stop. Crash to black. And so, Lee, we have probably the most downbeat and depressing ending in movie history. And just as a last kick in the balls to poor David, on one of the evacuation trucks that pass him is the woman from the store who had left her kids at home. She is safe, as are her children, Lee. Bloody hell.
I know, man. It's fucking beautiful, isn't it?
What, dude? There's something seriously wrong with you if you think this is a beautiful ending.
And a thing isn't necessarily beautiful because of the way it looks, man. It's the way it makes you feel.
Okay. Okay, that was surprisingly deep coming from you, Lee. But still, but still, this made you feel good?
No, man. I mean, it absolutely destroyed me the first time I watched it, and it still hits me every time. But I don't think any movie ending has ever affected me in quite the same way as this one. It's an awful tragedy, but it's also an act born out of love. I mean, this guy, he made a promise to his son, who he loves more than life, that he would do anything to stop the monsters from getting him. And in his eyes, doing that was the only way he could keep that promise. I mean, even these strangers and people he barely knows, he puts before himself because, trust me, after shooting his son, and he would have shot the boy first, he's going to want nothing more than to put a bullet in his mouth, but he doesn't. He saves everybody else, even though it leaves him behind. Now, ultimately, in hindsight, waiting an extra minute or two until the monsters were at the door would have been the ideal step, But don't forget, these people have literally lost all hope. They are broken, exhausted, and completely beaten down. And it becomes this tragic act because of the circumstances. But if David had been torn to pieces by some, I don't know, giant mist crab or something, everyone would mourn his noble sacrifice rather than his hasty decision. But that in itself sums up the whole theme of the movie, I think, which I'll look into more in our breakdown.
Yeah, nice. So does the original novella share this downbeat ending, Lee, or?
No, in the original fiction, David and his crew, they make it to the truck, drive out into the mist until they make out a faint radio signal, which kind of gives them the hope to continue. So it's still ambiguous, but there is that little bit of like hope sort of like seeded into it.
Little
So
glimmer.
yeah, a little glimmer. So come on, man, what did you think of this one?
Yeah, I enjoyed this one, Lee. I mean, it was
Good.
it was good to see so many familiar faces from, Darabont world. I enjoyed the kind of setup, and that we're essentially stuck in the supermarket with everyone. I thought it had a slightly, this is not in any way to sort of disparage the movie, but it had this kind of slightly TV movie feel, which, as I say, is no bad thing. And I think it was probably the sort of, with the episodic structure slightly,
Hmm.
with the fades rather than the titles,
Yeah.
but it just gave it that sort of feel. Slightly different vibe than I was expecting. I thought it was really well written. Good performances throughout. So yeah, man, I enjoyed it. Have to say though, I hadn't seen this before, but when we got to the end in the truck, I remembered. This is terrible for me to do. I do this all the time, like read about films that I haven't seen, but I sort of had read about this film and read about this ending somewhere, so I knew what was
Oh
going to
no.
happen. Yeah, dude,
Oh
like about 5 minutes before it did. And that's, that took a lot of the kind of power away from the
yeah,
ending,
yeah.
which is a real shame, man, because I would have loved to have sort of, it just clicked. I thought, oh shit, yeah,
Hmm.
I know exactly what's going to happen now. Um, but yeah, dude, overall, I thought this was a good one, man. I enjoyed this one.
Awesome. It's interesting that you mentioned the TV movie feel because for this film, Darabont imported a great deal of the crew and the shooting philosophy from a TV show called The Shield. I don't know
Okay.
if you've ever watched that
I
show or
know of
not.
it, never watched it, but yeah, I
Mm.
know of
A
it.
great show, really great show. Walton Goggins is in it.
Yeah,
Sells me straight away. Um, but Darabont directed an episode of the show and was so struck by how kind of quickly and efficiently the episode was shot that he decided to apply those methods to shooting the mist, which is why it has that kind of very gritty in the shot kind of TV kind of feel.
that's interesting.
Um, yeah, so I mean, so no surprises from me. I love this film. It's bleak as fuck, wonderfully acted, brilliantly written and directed. So yeah, it's a great one for me.
Nice, man. Okay, then, Lee, let's break this baby down. Okay, now let's start off by taking a look at our characters. Are there any introductions, Lee, that stood out to you as particularly effective or memorable?
It's interesting because Darabont seems to seems to kind of flip between detailed and bare bones like character introductions in this script.
Yeah,
But if I had to call one out, it would be the brilliant introduction of Mrs. Carmody, which goes like this. David turns, sees Mrs. Carmody enter. She seems like a nice, though eccentric lady at first, but, well, we'll get to know her soon enough. She's in a canary yellow pantsuit, annoyed to see such a long wait at the check stands. How about you? What was yours?
yeah. Well, it's funnily enough, Lee. When I was reading through the script, I picked this one out too. And normally, if I sort of see that we pick the same thing, I'd sort of pick
Hmm.
something different just to, mix it up a little bit. But I've stuck with this one because I think it's worth kind of looking at a little bit. So the reason I picked this one out initially was the way that Darabont addresses the reader. So we get this line, but well, we'll get to know her soon enough. And I just thought this was really interesting because it kind of it goes light on details, but it entices the reader to read on in a really interesting way and to discover how this character is going to develop and who this character is. And I just think it's cool sometimes to sort of break that wall, so to speak, and invite another level of participation in the script, from the readers.
Yeah, absolutely. Reader engagement, man, especially in a spec script. I mean, this isn't a spec script, but especially in a script you're trying to sell, it's a great way to hook your reader and get them on your side.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like breaking that wall in this way kind of is a really good hook to get people to read on and sort of, as I say, just invites a greater level of participation. But I thought also it might be interesting to take a look at some of these characters in a little more detail with this film, maybe more than we would normally do, because I think in this film especially, it does something sort of quite interesting. The store in the mist kind of acts as a microcosm reflecting wider society and sort of human nature, really. So I thought maybe breaking down the characters somewhat might shine a light on how Darabont has built out his cast of characters to reflect, as I say, different aspects of society or different aspects of human nature.
Mm.
So we start with our protagonist, David Drayton. So David is an artist. He's introduced as an artist. He's a husband and a father, and he's a man who's able to sort of step up and take charge, but also he's seeking to maintain a level head and stay rational, and he's certainly not looking for the sort of the limelight in any way. It's not sort of egotistical that he's stepping up, very pragmatic. And he's the sort of chief proponent of a general desire for order, when the crisis hits. And I think he's looking for consensus and he's not looking to dominate in any way. He's very much a sort of reluctant hero, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And you mentioned sort of everyman, and I think that sort of, that fits David
Mm.
Drayton really well. And you've got his son, Billy Drayton. He's the sort of, I think, the personification of innocence in this film. He's in need of protection and reassurance, and he provides motivation for David's actions, but also adds a reason why David wants to maintain order. He wants to survive, yes, but David also wants a life in this community after hopefully all of this blows over.
Yeah, nice. I mean, as per legendary Phil Parker, we've got to have that innocence threatened in there somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Billy is that innocence threatened, right?
Mm.
If you want to hear more about that, obviously have a listen to our Phil Parker interview episode. That's in the back catalogue there.
Yep.
So then we move on. We have Mrs. Carmody, and in a way, I think she's the sort of human antagonist of the film. Now, this film obviously has the mist and the creatures as sort of antagonists on the face of it, but I think Darabont is clearly looking at how society functions and how it breaks down in a crisis. And he's also looking at human nature. And I think Carmody, in a way, represents how human nature can be kind of manipulated in a crisis and how the veneer of society can break down when the shit hits the fan. So Carmody is obviously a religious kind of zealot and is able to take advantage of the crisis to whip up some of the store patrons into this kind of religious frenzy. And she's offering them simple answers and solutions to a really complex kind of situation. She represents, in a way, a kind of populist leader, taking advantage of
Mm.
crisis to gain power, advance her own ideology, that sort of thing. And I think this is not only a knock at sort of religious dogmatism in the film, but also says something about human nature and our proclivity to sort of seek out and follow leaders who provide answers when things are bad. And Carmody is a scapegoater, she utilizes the fear and the desperation of those around her to rise her or bring up her own sort of level of influence and power. And then we have Amanda Dumfries, and she's a local sort of gun carrying teacher. And I think Amanda, for me, represents a sort of protective and maternal presence in general in the film.
Yeah.
She sort of takes care of Billy, and as a sort of task or as a role, she sort of adopts, and it's something to focus on for her in the madness. And she's working for something bigger than herself, and this provides her with the strength she needs to survive. And I think the fact that she carries a gun sort of hints at her protective streak. But the fact that she doesn't have the gun loaded is interesting. I think it sort of suggests while she wants to care for and provide protection to innocents, there's only so far that she's willing to go to achieve this. You know, she's uncomfortable about using the gun and using violence, and clearly feels this will in some way be a step too far for her. You know, she wants to maintain her humanity in all of this.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
really cool point.
and then we move on to the legend that is Ollie Weeks, right?
Yay.
The the mild-mannered assistant manager of the store. And Ollie really represents to me someone who's able to maintain a cool head in a crisis. However, unlike Amanda, he is willing to maintain order by the use of force. Um, and he could, in a way, represent the idea that, you know, order sort of needs enforcement at a certain time and at a certain level. Um, it requires an enforcement to maintain some sort of order. And despite
Mm.
this, I mean, he is sort of empathetic and he's understanding of human nature, and is able to sort of relay to people and communicate to people, you know, why people act the way they do. Certainly to David, I think he does that.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that Ollie is killed after the shooting of Commodi is in some way a kind of divine punishment for taking the law into his own hands. You know, he didn't merely kind of incapacitate Carmody. You know, he didn't fire his gun in the air or shoot her in the leg or, you know, threaten. He shot her in the stomach and then he shot her in the head. And I think this could be seen as a sort of a transgression of societal order in a way. And, you know, as such, he was probably always going to die. You know, I think
Oh,
there's something about that action which I think
mm.
sort of stepped beyond the rules, if you like, and sort of
Yeah,
fated him for a death.
I kind of
Um,
see what you mean there. Yeah, I kind of see what you mean.
it
If
sort
you
of
just shot her
it,
in the head first, they'd still have 5 bullets left for the car as well.
that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
But he may not have died, so there'd probably be six of them.
Mm.
But no, I just think he's sort of, I think he's a guy he's obviously got good instincts and sort of coming from a good moralistic standpoint, but he does slip into vigilantism, you know,
Mm.
and sort of takes that sort of ultimate act, which gets him in trouble, I think. But then we
Yeah.
move on to Brent Norton, Dan's neighbor, big shot New York lawyer, obviously. And Brent really represents for me a sort of hyper rational segment of society that almost bury their heads in the sand. You know, when things start to go off the rails, they refuse to believe in the implausible and refuse to, you know, even look at the evidence, right? He's so convinced of his own priors that he won't consider evidence to the contrary. And it's a very narrow minded and sort of stubborn psychology which starts to verge on, you know, irrational and paranoid. He starts to accuse David of trying to make a fool out of him rather than believe in David's kind of honest attempts to show him the
Mm.
truth. And Brent, for me, represents people in society who sort of refuse to change their opinions despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. You know, he's a person who has the sort of slightly hubristic, kind of prideful streak, which makes him
Yeah.
pretty rigid in his thinking.
Hmm.
Um, and then we move on to Dan Miller, the local man who's one of the first to encounter the creatures in the mist. And Dan, to me, represents someone who's able to maintain his rationality and empathy in the face of an overwhelming crisis. You know, he stays pretty cool, and his primary motivation seems to be to help his community.
Yeah.
He's open-minded, but he won't be swayed by sort of false prophets and populists, if you know what I mean. And we have Irene Repler. You know, she's a tough-minded, sort of elderly elementary school teacher who sides with David. And to me, she represents the perspective of the older generation. She brings a certain amount of experience and wisdom to the group. You know, she kind of calls out Carmody and sees her bluster for what it is. And I think she's been through maybe, you know, like the Second World War. She has
Mm.
experiences of serious kind of crises and has seen people use these crises to embark on power grabs and is, you know, she is bloody minded in refusing to be sort of swept away by hysteria, you know.
Yeah.
And then the last I'm going to cover, there are other characters that are important, but the last I'm going to cover is Jim Grondin, the local mechanic. And, you know, it's his sort of weak mindedness that allows him to be whipped into a frenzy of panic and fear and come under the sway of Carmody's religious zealotry. He represents to me the part of society who are just looking for something to cling on to, something that will provide them with answers and a path. And he's willing to forego or jettison any form of sort of beliefs or morals in order to survive.
Yeah.
Um, so what is interesting, I think, about these characters, Lee, is I think they've been designed to represent different aspects of our nature. And we see how these different people cope with the crisis they're being presented with. Some stand up for law, civilization, order, and humanity. We have reluctant heroes, protectors who are not willing to enforce, those that are. We have wise, experienced heads who have experience and willing to challenge those who are looking to profit from a crisis. We have the innocents who need to be protected. We have those who stubbornly sort of bury their head in the sand and are unwilling to change their prior beliefs no matter what. And we have the opportunist who's sort of seeking to profit from unrest and advance their own ideology. And I think it's really interesting to see how these characters form into groups and how these groups subsequently clash. But it's a really masterful kind of distillation of human nature, I think, through
Mm.
these different characters and then putting them into this sort of mall kind of situation, or not mall, sort of a sort of store situation and locking them in.
Yeah.
Really sort of is a microcosm for sort of society, macro society, if you know what I mean. It's sort of a really good distillation of all of that, I think, from Darabont. I just thought it was great.
Yeah, no, that's a really bangingly insightful little breakdown there. I think I never really gave it much thought, because it it plays as such a natural cross section, if you want, of humanity, But
Yeah,
no, you make a great point. They're all there to represent different societal aspects. I need to reread the novella again, but it'd be interesting to see just how much of this is King and how much comes from Darabont, and it kind of makes you think there's more similarities to Under the Dome. Do you ever read Under the Dome?
no,
That was a good one. It's kind of you had that kind of society trapped in one place where they can't get out, but instead of being like a few people trapped in a little shop, it's like the whole town is trapped under this
right. I think I
massive
do know of that
dome.
actually.
It's good. They made a series which it
Yeah.
was okay. It started off good but got worse. But the book is really cool and it's quite different to the show as well.
Yeah. Well, I imagine, they're both great writers. So
Mm,
they both, I imagine, it's a bit from both, right?
yeah.
Okay. So before we break down the scarology, did you have a scariest moment, Lee?
Yep, I'm gonna skip the ending here for a couple of reasons. First, that's what everyone will expect, and secondly, I found the ending more tragic than actually scary.
Yeah.
I think for me, the scariest scene it has down the scene where Mrs. Carmody incites the crowd to turn on and kill poor Jessup. So I think it's mainly because Sam Witwer is so good in that scene. You can just feel every ounce of terror as his situation just kind of goes from bad to worse to somehow even worse. Bless him.
Yeah.
I mean, how about you? Which was yours?
Yeah, he does a great job, Whitburn, I think, in that scene. Yeah. So the Jessup scene was pretty tough. I think for me, it was the moment leading up to Commody's death where she's, advocating the sacrifice of Billy and Amanda, Um, she's whipped this crowd up into such a frenzy here. And it really, for me, kind of represents or shows how a society can collapse and how we revert to our most base and sort of primal in those
Hmm.
situations and how easily the veneer of society can slip in just a couple of days.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, the other thing I thought about when I was thinking this is I think this is the sort of same thing that freaked me out a bit about 28 Days Later is this
Hmm.
kind of veneer of civilization all too quickly sort of slipping in a crisis and people turning on each other and
Yeah.
that sort of thing I find quite frightening.
Definitely. Yeah, I get that, man. I get that. So I mean, what you went for is very similar to what I went for. That, and as you said, that complete collapse of societal protections is, yeah, I think it's inherently terrifying to us. Because I
Yeah.
mean, Mrs. Carmody isn't all that scary herself, but the power she wields by the end of the film is quite frightening. And I think it's very interesting that both of us, we didn't go for like the freaking man-eating death spiders or the
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
the murder bats or the freaking death noodle tentacles. It was just a little scary old lady, and all the crap that she manages to stare up was the most terrifying.
Yeah.
I
It's
guess that's
just,
because that's the most relatable, isn't it?
yeah.
We
Well,
can
yeah,
relate to that.
it's disorder, isn't it? I think,
Mm,
there is something about that that is truly frightening because you can just imagine it.
yeah.
All right, then. So let's talk about the scarology. So, first of all, does the film more or less conform to the 10-minute rule?
Pretty much when you bear in mind that the length of each scare scene, because I mean these aren't just like one and done jump scares, they are long, drawn out, prolonged assaults.
Yeah. Okay, cool, man. So break it down for us.
Okay, so our first scare hits the ground at around about the 12-minute mark, and that's when the mist first rocks up and a bloody Dan Miller comes screaming into the store that the mist took somebody.
Not just somebody, something took John Lee.
Not John Lee. That's the one. So by the time that whole sequence is done, it's pretty much 10 minutes bang on until we hit the next scare, which is the tentacle scene at 25 minutes. Then we've got a pretty long wait for our next hit, which is when Norton and his crew head out into the mist, never to be seen or heard from again, and that's at 51 minutes. So there's a big gap between those two scares. But after that, it's just a few minutes later at 57 minutes that the bugs and the birds attack the store. And bear in mind, this epic clusterfuck runs like almost for 10 minutes, which would then, by the time that finishes, leads us 10 minutes later into the pharmacy expedition at 1 hour and 17 minutes. And we all remember how well that went. And that's another long scene running for over 7 minutes, which leads us nicely up to the 1 hour and 30-minute mark into that haunting scene where Mrs. Carmody orders her flock to sacrifice poor Private Jessup. And then in a big cheer moment, the crazy old lady is taken out of the picture at 1 hour and 37 minutes. And without skipping a beat, our heroes make for the truck at 1 hour and 41 minutes. And then bang on pretty much 10 minutes later is everyone's favorite downbeat, depressing ending at one
Mm,
hour and 51 minutes for our final scare.
nice. Okay, well, let's break down those acts for you. And as mentioned, it's worth noting that these scare scenes are quite long, torturous affairs that really kind of beat you down as a viewer. So, Act One kicks us off with two scares, evenly paced. Act Two picks up the pace a little with three scares, but these are long, drawn out ordeals that really contrast with the slower, character driven moments that divide them. Finally, Act Three hits us with four scares that hit in much faster succession and just leave us emotionally broken.
Yep, indeed. Perfect summary. Do you have any thoughts on the themes at work here?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting film to unpack thematically because there's a lot going on, I think. If we're referencing our sort of Parker themes, and obviously, as I say, have a listen to our interview with Phil if you want to know more about this. But I'd say the film, definitely has this sort of fear of the unknown to a certain degree, as most horrors do. But also, I think morality of individuals and desire for order are really, for
Mm-hmm.
me, the sort of primary Parker themes working throughout this film. It's difficult for me to sort of pick out which one is preeminent out of those two,
Yeah, no,
but
I
I,
hear
th-
you.
I think those two are really strong. In a wider context, the film I think looks at the madness of crowds. It's almost like The Crucible in a way. It looks at sort of this kind of mass hysteria in a crisis and how we as a species can revert to our primal natures very quickly when we're scared. There's a really cool line in the script which kind of alludes to this. And in the script, it says, "We're hearing sounds in the night, things moving around in the mist, in the dark, distant, raptor like shrieks, the flapping of strange wings, the deep grunts of huge unseen beasts in a world now primordial. People huddle in the dark, lit only by tea candles, like our ancestors in their caves, just trying to get through the night, exhausted, dazed with disbelief, etched with despair." So I think these lines, I mean, it really sort of
Mm.
hint at that theme, right? The idea that sort of society is a thin veneer which can all too easily be stripped away when things
Yeah.
go bad. And the film looks at how we search for strong leaders with simple, compelling messages, and a list of scapegoats, right? To sort of
Mm.
to try and sort of bring the order back in a way. And I think there's clearly a sort of religious component in the film as well, which is being worked through thematically. Darabont highlights how, you know, a religious dogmatism, A, sort of causes people to forget their humanity and the teachings of Christ, but also B, act in sort of heinous ways and grab power and influence, over a population which is in crisis, right? And in the script, Ollie has, a line of dialogue which I think hints at this quite well. So in the script, it goes like this: Mike, Ollie, help me, back me up here. Ollie, with what? The Holocaust, Rwanda, the Inquisition, 9/11. Read the papers, Mike. As a species, we're fundamentally insane. You get more than two of us in a room together, we start dreaming up reasons to kill one another. Why do you think we invented politics and religion? So again, I mean, I think that really hints kind of strongly at the themes
Yeah.
running through the film. Um, we also have this sort of loss of innocence thing happening in the film, which, whilst more sort of in the background, does come into play, I think with Ollie, Billy, and David in a way too. But yeah, dude, a lot going on. What about you? Did you have any thoughts on the themes?
Funny enough, I was thinking back to our Hidden Horror Gems episode, something Janine from Grey Horror asked us, that being, what would you double feature your selected film with? And for this movie, I would 100% choose The Shawshank Redemption as its sort of partner.
Okay, so that's somewhat unexpected. Is that the sort of Darabont King connection, or?
Good assumption, but no. It's because the Shawshank is all about the power of hope and like how holding on to it will bring you through the hardest of times.
Yeah,
Whereas
nice.
The Mist, however, is about the dangers of losing hope and the power of hopelessness to drive people to their lowest point and basest behavior. They're two sides of the same coin, so to speak, I think.
Yeah,
But like you said, if we're looking at Parker themes, then Fear of the Unknown, I think, is the biggie. The Mist itself is literally one big unknown. I mean, yeah, we learn a little about where it comes from, but as for what's in it, how far it reaches, that's all left to our imagination.
yeah.
We do also delve into the morality of individuals as the little societal bubble within the store starts to break down, and Mrs. Carmody proves to be just as big a threat than anything in the Mist.
Mm. Do you think that's stretching it a little, comparing a little old lady to a giant man-eating crab monster?
Maybe. I mean, I get your point, but if everyone in that store had stayed united and supported one another, then a lot more people would still be alive. I mean, there's a very good chance that the people in the store are still alive.
Mm,
They had plenty of resources to hold out until rescue. The creatures showed little interest in attacking the store, so if they just stayed put, kept quiet, and just waited, I think they've got pretty decent odds of all still being alive, which is kind of, I don't know if that's depressing or optimistic. I don't know.
yeah, no, agreed. I mean, I think actually, now that you sort of highlight it, the idea of a loss of hope is really strong in the film, so I'm glad you kind of brought that one up and sort of spotted that one.
Mm.
Okay, so what, if anything, do you think you've learned from this script, Lee?
First off, chapter titles are a very niche thing and don't translate to the screen well unless it's absolutely intrinsic to the film, I think.
Yeah. So off topic a little bit. I mean, can you think of any film where this is the case?
It's cheating maybe a little bit, but Strange Darling has titled act breaks, but it is absolutely 100% intrinsic to the plot and the way that film is structured.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking when we were sort of doing this, thinking of a few films with chapter headings. So Tarantino does that sometimes.
Yeah,
And Wes Anderson has used it as a technique too, and Christopher Nolan did it with Dunkirk as well. I think it's, in a way, I think it's an interesting way to sort of segment the narrative. Or you can use it to offer sort of thematic divisions within the film. But yeah,
yeah,
it really needs to have you really need to have a reason to do it. And I'm not sure the way the titles are sort of presented in the script here are really doing anything more than, just sort of breaking the story into sections,
yeah.
in a way. But I mean, for me, I thought the script was really well written, as you'd sort of expect from Darabont. But what stood out for me was I mentioned this sort of way back, was the way in which he's engaging the reader.
Yeah.
Um, And this is something I've really sort of become more interested in since we did the Monster Squad episode, through the Babysitter and Cobweb episodes, and obviously now this, and I just love how some writers go about engaging the reader and invite
Mm,
greater sort of participation in the script and the reading experience. I think it really makes scripts more entertaining as a piece of prose. And can lead, I think, to a greater investment in the story and the project as a whole, so that you know I guess that's what I'm taking forward is how can we as writers add obviously like personality to our screenplays, but also, can we invite a greater level of reader participation in our screenplays? And I wondered, like, we've had
mm.
conversations recently about writers' voices, how this can maybe sort of contribute to your own voice in a way as well,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. That's a really good take out there. It's something I'm trying to do more in my writing as well.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so going back on something that I sort of touched on earlier, I want to say that it's okay to drop long, intricate action lines. And, if you're as good as Darabont, it absolutely is. Spoiler, folks, you're not. Sorry. But I just can't bring myself to do it. I mean, if you can say it in 7 lines, you can say it quicker in two. You'll do your thing, take what works for you, ditch what doesn't. I'm starting to think that maybe I just have a bee in my bonnet about this particular action line length. I mean, what's your standpoint on this, dude?
Wow. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, haven't we? I mean,
Yeah,
personally, I think scripts read so much better for me when the action lines are 2 or 3 lines long.
yeah,
It just sort of flows better, and you don't, you don't really need to describe everything in intricate detail. So I
yeah,
really do try and limit myself to that sort of 2, 3 action line, method. And I think, honestly, I think it's more inviting on the page as well, with shorter action lines rather than sort
yeah,
of blocks of text. Yeah, so I kind of agree, dude. I mean, I'm sort of with you on that, as I'm sure you know anyway.
yeah.
But yeah, one thing I did notice from the script was how Darabont used, in one part, he used extended words to kind of get across something of atmosphere and tension in a
Mm,
scene. And this is something interesting, isn't it? Because we've often sort of talked about the script sin of extended words and the
mm.
no kind of deal.
Yeah, I
But
know.
Darabont does it here in an interesting way, which is to sort of almost in a sort of a way that Chris Devlin kind of almost it has that sort of
Mm,
feel about it in a way.
yeah.
So this is sort of from the script, this example. And it says, there's the sound again, something sliding very slowly in the darkness behind him, then silence. And so the sliding, the very, and the slowly,
Mm,
these are sort of increase that basically the words have been lengthened. So there's 3 I's in sliding, there's 2 E's and 4 R's in very, and there's sort of 3 O's and 2 W's in slowly. And I just thought it was another really interesting way of kind of playing with format. But
mm.
this time it's engaging the reader, but it's motivated by the action in the scene, and it's what Darabont wants to evoke in terms of a feeling in the reader. And I just thought that was a very cool technique and something I picked
Yeah,
up on and something worth thinking about. It's probably better in certain types of scripts than others, or
yeah,
certain genre than
yeah.
others. But for this, I mean, I thought it worked really, really well.
It does. It does. I mean, I very nearly called you out on this, like you mentioned, as a script sin, but then I realized that it's not spoken dialogue being drawn out, and
Yeah, this is it.
that's where we tend to sort of focus in on it as a script sin because it's unnecessary, because you let the actor play it how they want to play it.
Mm,
Um, but I think if that had been dialogue, then I would have absolutely labeled it as script sin. But because it's just an action line, it actually works. As you
yeah.
said, it just helps you visualize exactly what it's going for. And I think it's just another great way to engage readers' imaginations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I thought. And the other thing, I've sort of mentioned it already, but just how Darabont is addressing the reader in the script.
Mm,
And we talked about the Carmody intro. There's another interesting passage, though, which I sort of picked out, which goes as follows. Camera pushes in as they turn to stare at the windows, in brackets, which are fractured with large cracks, remember?
mm,
Close brackets. their faces going slack as it sinks in how vulnerable they truly are. So here, Darabont, I mean, he reminds the reader about the cracked glass, and he does so in brackets, as I mentioned, which, could kind of pull us out of the moment. But
Hmm.
again, I just found this to be sort of pretty engaging, and actually had
Yeah.
the effect of drawing me in. So slightly kind of counterintuitive, I guess, but I think it's a really interesting device, I think. And it's just another way that Darabont is looking to sort of engage the reader,
Yeah.
with something that's not on screen. It's directly
Hmm.
addressing the reader and
Yeah.
asking them if they remember certain beats, right? So I think this is a really cool thing to do. Okay, so let's move on. So you mentioned something about a theory as to why the spider gave up so easily, attacking the car. Should we revisit that, Lee?
Yeah, sure thing. So, uh, basically, this my sort of idea on this kind of technically explains why the monsters didn't break into the store, whereas the pharmacy was turned into a complete spider slaughterhouse. Okay, so we know that the monsters and the mist come from another dimension, right? And we can assume that the mist is kind of like I'm assuming it's like the standard state of being over there. So obviously these creatures are going to have pretty piss poor eyesight, and because what use are eyes if you can't see more than a few feet in front of you? So that leaves us with how they're going to hunt, sound, and or smell. In the original novella, it's mentioned that the mist actually muffles sound, which would make hearing somewhat redundant as a means of hunting. So, what does that leave us with? That leaves us with hunting by scent. It's also mentioned in the novella that the mist has an unpleasant odor. So, if we're going book logic, you could argue this would possibly invalidate smell as a hunting source, but I think we're in movie territory, and think about it. These creatures can easily break through the flimsy glass if they know food is inside. So why don't they? They can certainly see inside, especially when the lights are on, and this does kind of draw the insects in like moths to a flame. But the people in the store are generally quiet. They don't make a great deal of noise, so that could be why. But when the people venture into the mist, they are deadly quiet. And most of them are still attacked almost immediately after leaving the store. So it's probably not sound. So therefore, I kind of conclude that scent is probably how these creatures hunt. So when people are in the store or in the car, their scent is pretty much hidden, it's vanished. Hence why the spider immediately loses interest when the truck's doors are closed. It's only when they are outside or exposed that people are attacked. So yes, so that
Mm,
is my big smell theory.
nice. Yeah, no, I think that theory holds water, Lee. I think that's some great detective work there. Yeah, good stuff. Good
Thank
theorizing.
you, man.
Okay, so I think we're almost done here, dude. Before we wrap up and talk about our next episode, what would you rate the script and the film as here?
For me, I'm going eights across the board.
Interesting. I went with sevens, man. I enjoyed I enjoyed the film, although I think some of the FX haven't aged all that well.
Hmm.
And I thought tonally it was quite curious. It seems kind of at once bleak and serious and naturalistic, but also like a touch. I don't know if arch is the right word or it's not camp, but there's a touch of sort of something there,
Hmm.
tonally, which I thought was interesting. I don't know. Anyway, I gave them both a seven.
Okay, so that gives us 15 out of 20 for the film and 15 out of 20 for the script, man. I don't know, man. That just feels a bit low for this one. I do
Oh.
get what you're saying about the FX and like the TV movie feel, though. But I'm just thinking, well, it is what it is. 15 out of 20, 15 out of 20. But
Would you like me to raise my
not if you don't
scores,
feel it's
Lee?
warranted.
If
No,
it's
don't,
gonna cause you
don't.
problems sleeping
No, no, no,
tonight,
no, no.
I
It's all good, man. It's all
I don't
good.
want any,
But
unresolved
no,
annoyance
it's all good. To be fair, I don't
between
feel it's
us.
quite worth. I don't. No, we're cool, brother. We're cool. I don't feel it's worth a nine, so I don't feel like I can go any higher. But no, yeah. I mean, 15 out of 20 is a really respectable score. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting on Darabont's work. We're almost always kind of in tune with the script and the film. Have you noticed?
Mm, interesting. Okay, so Lee, what's on the agenda for next time, dude?
So next time we will be taking a deep dive into the modern take on an iconic classic, Lee Whannell's The Invisible Man. And if you haven't
Ah,
seen this one already, it's an absolute banger. It's one of my son's favorite films. He's been on at me to cover this for ages, and I've just recently managed to get a hold of the script. So
fantastic.
we're going in.
I love the the old Universal Invisible Man.
Mm.
So it'll be interesting to see how one else sort of updated this. Haven't seen this one either. So
I
yeah,
think you'll enjoy this one. This one is very, very well done, very competently shot.
great stuff. Is this the one with Kevin Bacon?
No, that is Hollow Man, which is also a
Oh,
great
okay.
film.
Yeah,
But have
okay.
you seen Hollow Man?
No, I haven't. No.
That's
Uh,
also a very good film. There's some
okay. All
generally
right.
brilliantly badly aged CGI in it, and
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon is an absolute bastard in it. But it's a great Hollow Man is a great film. But if you're talking like overall quality, this is a far superior film.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that, dude. That should be good. So if you enjoyed the podcast, as we said earlier, please hit like and subscribe if you fancy. And if you're feeling generous, a review would be wonderful. You can do that on your podcatcher. It really helps us reach new people. We are on Facebook and Blue Sky, and we can be reached there. So go check out our socials. We are posting a reasonable amount, as much as we can muster right now. We also do publish to YouTube, so you can listen to us there. And feel free to drop us a line with any thoughts. You can do that on our website. That's www.scripttoscreenpodcast.com. We genuinely love hearing from you guys. And we have loads more content there. So script samples, scarology graphs, all sorts of stuff. Now, we're also offering script reading services. And me and Lee will analyze your scripts and give you tailored feedback on your work. And we're also creating pitch decks for projects now too. So we will collaborate with you to create a really beautiful pitch deck for your project, which you can then obviously take out into the world and get pitching. So if that's of interest, as I say, go to the website, navigate to the script reading page, and you can get all of the information there. But until next time, do take care.
And for the sakes of Ollie and John Lee, keep writing those scares.